Chapter 15:15. I'm more interested. A clear and bright laugh rang out. Jiang Haoshuan could only watch helplessly as the white bone that was almost in his hands flew away just like that. Although he didn't know what the white bone was, Jiang Haoshuan knew very well. An existence that could cause such a terrifying commotion was definitely not an ordinary object. Moreover, this was the greatest land of opportunity in the Cloudfire territory, vast sky sacred mountain. Damn it! Jiang Haoshuan's ancient suppression heavenly eyes fluctuated rapidly at this moment. Then, he looked up. Before he could even see clearly who had attacked him, the light of the ancient suppression heavenly eyes suddenly burst forth. One word suppresses all ages. Jiang Haoshuan roared. 2 pillars of light bloomed from Jiang Haoshuan's eyes. This time, it wasn't the suppressive force used against the sage emperors and great sages. Instead, it was a suppressive force. Jiang Haoshuan was enraged to the extreme by this person who had suddenly appeared and snatched away his treasure. Looking at the 2 pillars of light, Tianyang's face revealed a trace of surprise. He could tell at a glance that this was a special constitution that Jiang Haoshuan possessed. However, he had never seen this constitution before. Even in the countless records of the Xiantian Great Cosmos, it had never appeared before. Interesting. Tianyang's lips curled up. A black light flashed in his hand. Burning with raging black flames, the great void sword embryo slashed down. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out. After this collision, the ground where Tianyang and Jiang Haoshuan were standing trembled non-stop. It was as if the earth was roaring. Seeing this, although Jiang Haoshuan's face didn't show any expression, his heart was in turmoil. This person had actually blocked the suppressive force of his ancient suppression heavenly eyes? This was an attack that not even Lin Fenghua from the 5 prefectures would be willing to face. As expected of a special physique unique to the divine world. The power of these eyes is indeed extraordinary. At this moment, the voice sounded again, and Jiang Haoshuan lifted his head to take a look. Then, his expression instantly froze. It's you? Jiang Haoshuan said in disbelief. That fellow who had suddenly made a move, snatched away by Gu, who had already become his possession, and took his suppressing ancient heavenly eyes head-on, was actually the person who he was not even willing to take a second look at outside vast sky divine mountain? Even though he was shocked by Tianyang's powerful strength, Jiang Haoshuan could not call out his name. Because he was too disdainful, he didn't even bother to know the other party's name. Wow, it's that strange big brother. On the other hand, Jiang Xian's face lit up when she saw Tianyang. I knew that big brother was not simple. Now it seems that Bai Gu is really related to big brother. Jiang Xian said loudly. Hearing this, Jiang Haoshuan's face became even more gloomy. In the next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared. He appeared behind Tianyang, and a long saber instantly condensed in his hand. He slashed fiercely at Tianyang's head. No matter who you are, you dare to snatch from my hands. Only death awaits you. A peak holy emperor's vital energy, which was close to that of a demigod, bloomed on the blade. Sky-shattering sword dance. Countless sword lights slashed out from Jiang Haoshuan's long saber at this moment. It was clearly a long saber, but when it performed this sword dance, it actually had the same elegance as a sword. Not bad. Tianyang smiled lightly. At this moment, wisps of powerful primary force were unleashed. Sword realm, open. Boom. The surrounding world seemed to have turned into a world of swords at this moment. The sword dance performed by Jiang Haoshuan was instantly suppressed by the power of the sword realm. Suppress? Jiang Haoshuan's expression suddenly changed when he saw this. Then, incomparable fury began to burn on his face. Trying to suppress in front of my suppressing ancient heavenly eyes? Showing off in front of an expert! Jiang Haoshuan roared. In his eyes, an ancient word released a bright light. A terrifying suppressive force gushed out from the suppressing ancient heavenly eyes. For a moment, it actually wiped out the power of Tianyang's sword realm and suppressed it at the same time. Sensing that the sword realm was at a disadvantage, Tianyang's eyes suddenly flashed. The corner of his mouth curled up. Although this genius of the divine world had not stepped into the demigod realm and was still in the sage realm. But this power was far from what an ordinary holy emperor could compare to. To be able to achieve such a dazzling achievement, he must have some skills. Since that's the case, let's play. After keeping the white bone, Tianyang smiled and released the sword realm to the extreme. He held the great void sword embryo tightly in his hand and fought fiercely with Jiang Haoshuan. Boom, boom, boom. Loud sounds were heard. The great void sword embryo and Jiang Haoshuan's long saber kept colliding. In midair, there were explosions that caused the space to tremble. In Jiang Haoshuan's eyes, the ancient word suppressing was still flickering. It released waves of suppressive force in an attempt to completely suppress Tianyang. However, in Jiang Haoshuan's senses, although Tianyang's sword realm could not withstand his suppressing ancient heavenly eyes, it was like a slippery fish. However, Tianyang was like a slippery loach. Just when Jiang Haoshuan thought he could completely suppress Tianyang, Tianyang would erupt with a wave of resistance and forcefully turn the situation around. It was as if Tianyang was deliberately controlling the situation. This is impossible. Flames burned in Jiang Haoshuan's eyes. With a low roar, the ancient word suppressing bloomed with unprecedented light. One eye, shatter time. Jiang Haoshuan let out a roar as a destructive beam of light shot out. With extreme speed, it arrived in front of Tianyang in the blink of an eye. Go to hell! Jiang Haoshuan roared. As expected, Tianyang did not succeed in blocking it. He was swallowed by this powerful destructive light pillar. Ha ha ha! Seeing this, Jiang Haoshuan laughed maniacally. No matter how evil this guy was, he was still vulnerable in front of him, one of the three heavenly prides of the Cloud Fire territory and a person on the true dragon roll. Below, the crowd also looked at the sky in shock. The person from before was killed by Jiang Haoshuan just like that? So, this is Jiang Haoshuan's real trump card. If he used this move against us previously, I'm afraid we would have. As he listened to the praises and fearful comments, the corners of Jiang Haoshuan's lips curled up. At this moment, the light pillar dissipated. Tianyang's body appeared. Although he was still alive, his left arm had disappeared. As expected. Seeing this, Jiang Haoshuan laughed maniacally. Tianyang looked at his left arm casually. Good, very strong. Then, an undying flame burned. In just a breath's time, the missing left arm was restored. Chapter 15-16. Let's do it again. Tianyang smiled faintly as he casually swung his newly regenerated left arm. Although this left arm was newly regenerated, it still didn't match Tianyang's original skin. However, at a speed visible to the naked eye, it also merged with Tianyang's original body. Swinging it around, it was as natural as if it had never been broken. It was as if the destructive light beam that Jiang Haoshuan unleashed with all his might was nothing. Although he had severed Tianyang's left arm, it had recovered under the effect of the immortal blood. Apart from causing Tianyang to lose some blood, it really seemed to be nothing. However, Jiang Haoshuan obviously couldn't accept this fact. Impossible! 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 How can my ancient suppressing heavenly eyes lose? How can it be blocked so easily? Jiang Haoshuan roared crazily as the light of the ancient characters in his eyes gradually dimmed. After using the destructive light beam this time, even the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes couldn't hold on any longer. Just a second ago, the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes unleashed its power and destroyed all enemies in the world. Even the mighty and domineering Tianyang lost his left arm under the strongest attack of the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes, which sealed his victory. But now? His left arm, which had just been reduced to nothingness, recovered right under his nose. He could only watch helplessly as it recovered once again. It didn't look like it was exhausted at all. Again? Tianyang smiled and smacked his lip. The power of the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes was indeed a special physique unique to the god realm. However, the reason he lost his arm wasn't that he didn't have time to resist. He wanted to see, since the chaos origin was the origin of all techniques, then could he use the chaos aura to forcefully break the ancient suppressing heavenly eye's ultimate attack? Tianyang had a feeling that the attack of the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes, which was filled with the power of destruction, would have a great effect on his time origin and life origin. If he could obtain it, it could be said that he would be able to obtain a new trump card without any effort. Again. Jiang Haoshuan was stunned. His eyes stared at Tianyang as if he wanted to devour Tianyang. In the next moment, his long hair instantly burst out. Again? Jiang Haoshuan's eyes were bloodshot as if he had gone mad. The ancient suppressing heavenly eyes that had already dimmed released rays of light again. At this moment, the word suppress once again erupted with rays of light. Since you want it, I'll give it to you. Ancient suppression heavenly eyes, break the chaos of time. A heavenly eyes, Jiang, a destructive light beam, a beams eyes. But at this moment, Heavenly Sun's expression changed. His eyes narrowed as he revolved the chaos source. Streaks of chaotic airflow flew out of Tianyang's dantian and condensed on Tianyang's palm. Tianyang's demigod primordial spirit was also activated to the extreme at this moment. Boom! The destructive light beam exploded. Tianyang raised his right hand and aimed at the destructive light beam. Streaks of chaotic airflow swept out like a storm. In the next moment, the destructive light beam violently bombarded Tianyang's palm. Then, contrary to Jiang Haoshuan's expectations, the huge destructive light beam swallowed Tianyang and even severely injured and killed him. Instead, it turned into rays of dazzling light dust. It exploded in an instant. How is this possible? Seeing this, Jiang Haoshuan's body trembled as he looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. His destructive light beam was even more direct and thorough than before. He raised his hand and did not even feel the fluctuation of true yuan. That pillar of light turned into dust that filled the sky before exploding. Tianyang's expression turned serious and he withdrew his palm. The ancient suppression heavenly eye was indeed not that easy to break. Although the origin of chaos was the origin of all techniques, it was still very difficult to reverse the process. Even though Tianyang's control of the origin of chaos had reached an unusually high level, it was still difficult for him to do so. If Jiang Haoshuan had dug out the ancient suppression heavenly eye and placed it in front of him, it might have been possible. However, Tianyang had no interest in changing the eye. I don't believe it, Jiang Haoshuan roared. In his eyes, the ancient character of suppression once again emitted rays of dazzling light. That powerful destructive force seemed to be condensing again. However, this time, the light released by the ancient character of suppression was fluctuating. Even so, Jiang Haoshuan still stared at Tianyang and tried to attack again. You can't beat him. At this moment, a voice sounded. The power of the ancient suppression heavenly eye that Jiang Haoshuan had just condensed suddenly stopped. Then, it dissipated. Come back. Tianyang turned around and saw that the person who spoke was actually Jiang Xian. Jiang Haoshuan still wanted to say something, but he could only sigh. He withdrew the ancient suppression heavenly eye and flew to the ground. Jiang Xian, on the other hand, did not spare Jiang Haoshuan another glance. Instead, she looked at Tianyang and revealed a mischievous and adorable smile. Big brother is so strong. I wonder if you're interested in joining us? Jiang Xian smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang did not even hesitate and shook his head. Jiang Xian might look like a cute and innocent young girl, but she was actually a little girl. Just the 2 sentences from before had already exposed Jiang Xian's extraordinariness. Believe her? That would be the #1 idiot in the world. Moreover, after stepping into the demigod's soul realm, Tianyang also felt that something was wrong. This girl's body would occasionally emit a strange fluctuation. It was not strong, but it gave Tianyang an extremely strange feeling. Strange and unfathomable. Shouldn't he tell such a person to stay away for the new year? If that's the case, I'm very sad. After being rejected so decisively, Jiang Xian's face revealed a dejected expression. Then, she raised her head. Then, I still don't know Big Brother's name. Yang Tian. Tianyang said indifferently. Then, he turned around and left. After defeating Lin Fenghua, when he returned to the Great Sun Sect, Yang Tian's name would definitely resound throughout the entire vast sky sacred mountain. This way, it would be the same whether he told Jiang Xian or not. Looking at Tianyang's departing figure, Jiang Xian's expression did not change. Her eyes flashed. He can't run away. Vast sky sacred mountain, in the first layer of the heavenly seal. Tianyang randomly found a relatively hidden cave and entered it. He took out the white bone that he had just snatched from Jiang Haoshuan. He had just fought with Lin Fenghua when he was in the demigod's soul realm. If it was not necessary, Tianyang would not continue to make enemies with the Jiang clan. However, the value of this white bone was not just to make enemies with the Jiang clan. Even if Tianyang killed Jiang Haoshuan, it would be worth it. I can't find it in the Xiantian Great World, but I can find it in the realm of the gods. Tianyang smiled slightly and looked at the white bone in his hand with a burning gaze. A wisp of immortal flame burned fiercely. The outer layer of the white bone gradually melted, revealing the crystal-clear bones underneath. Tianyang was very familiar with these bones. The Immortal Divine Body. Chapter 15-17. Immortal Divine Body, Indestructible Body. As Tianyang's primordial spirit power flowed into Tianyang's mind, a huge amount of information flowed into his mind. Tianyang had already cultivated 3 levels of the Immortal Divine Body. Indestructible eye, indestructible bone, and indestructible blood. Among them, indestructible eye gave him a powerful eye technique superpower. Indestructible bone gave him a strong physical body that was invincible among his peers. Indestructible blood gave Tianyang the superpower of rebirth from a single drop of blood. If not for indestructible blood, Tianyang would not have resisted Jiang Haoshuan's ancient suppressing heavenly eyes. No matter how weak a special body constitution was, it was still a special body constitution of the divine world. As expected, indestructible eye is the entry level of the immortal divine body. It's just to activate the immortal divine fire. Next, indestructible bone and indestructible blood are the main body of the immortal divine body. Bones, bloodline, and next, the physical body. Tianyang smiled and held the indestructible body in his hand. He had a feeling that if he cultivated the indestructible body, he could defeat all the saint emperors in the world with his physical strength. Besides, I can also consider the 8th essence. However, I don't know if this indestructible body is a treasure of the heavens expanse emperor or something from someone who died here. The corner of Tianyang's mouth curled up. However, no matter what, he had benefited from this. Without the immortal bloodline, no one could cultivate it successfully. After preparing for a while, Tianyang took a deep breath. Then, the immortal divine fire burned. Tianyang sat on the ground with his legs crossed. The immortal divine fire burned on his body, making him look like a man on fire. The indestructible body requires the most powerful immortal divine fire to burn the physical body and reconstruct it 108,000 times. With the immortal will as the core, the indestructible bone as the frame, and the indestructible blood as the source, a supreme physical body is created. As expected of the immortal bloodline, The cultivation method of the indestructible body is really ruthless. Tianyang chuckled, but he still raised the immortal flame to the highest level. In less than 10 seconds, the body that Tianyang had painstakingly cultivated was burned to ashes. However, it was just burning his physical body. What did Tianyang have to fear? He was a man who had died twice. Just as Tianyang was looking for a cave to begin cultivating his indestructible body, the entire vast heavens sacred mountain had undergone tremendous changes. Or rather, the entire vast sky godly mountain was constantly changing. As time passed, the change became more and more obvious. For example, the Great Sun Sect, the Jiang clan, and other powerful organizations constantly spread the news that they had obtained various powerful treasures. Some Saint Kings had even reached the peak of Saint King with the assistance of these treasures. This was merely the first level of the heavenly restriction of the vast sky divine mountain. The first level of the heavenly restriction already has so many opportunities. This is not like the previous vast sky divine mountain. At the intersection of the first and second levels of the heavenly restriction, the fighting 10 parties casually pulled out the purple lightning godly spear and took away his opponent's space bag. Then, he looked at the second level of the heavenly restriction and muttered to himself, "I don't know if it's a coincidence, or if something has happened at the Cloud Fire Dao competition. I don't know. Jiang Xian, what do you think?" Jiang Haoshuan of the Jiang clan looked at Jiang Xian and asked. Hearing this, Jiang Xian pondered for a moment and shook her head. "What I can be sure of is that the vast sky divine mountain will not be peaceful this time. The fighting 10 parties is not the only variable. The cultivation of the indestructible body was easier than Tianyang had imagined. After all, Tianyang had completely comprehended the immortal will after the battle with the undying prince. His indestructible bones and indestructible blood had also been cultivated to the peak. He had even cultivated the rebirth from a drop of blood. Cultivating the initial stage of the indestructible body was not difficult. However, after burning himself 88,000 times, Tianyang realized that the indestructible body was not easy to cultivate. Even if he had cultivated the initial stage of the indestructible body, it was extremely difficult to go any further. What a pity! Tianyang sighed and stood up. The immortal divine fire on his body also dissipated at this moment. Tianyang casually pulled out a piece of clothing from the space bag and put it on. Then, he clenched his fist. The cultivation of the immortal divine body would not cause much of a change to one's appearance. The current Tianyang was still the same as when he had just been reborn. He was relatively thin. However, he punched out. Boom! Ripples appeared in the air. Then, like glass shattering, pieces of glass burst out. Seeing this, Tianyang's face showed traces of satisfaction. The space in the divine realm was far more stable than the Xiantian Great World. The vast heavens sacred mountain had the divine power of the vast heavens emperor, so it was more stable than the outside world. Previously, Jiang Haoshuan's suppressing ancient heavenly eyes could not destroy the space in the slightest. However, his punch was able to do so. From this, one could see how strong Tianyang's physical body was now. I've almost finished absorbing the destructive power of the suppressing ancient heavenly eyes. When the time comes, I'll try to create a new sword technique. Tianyang chuckled. Then, in a flash, he left the cave. However, as soon as he stepped out, Tianyang felt that something was wrong. The sky seemed to be more bloody than before. Tianyang frowned. He suspected that he was hallucinating or that the immortal eyes had been accidentally activated. However, no matter how Tianyang looked, the sky seemed to be dyed red with blood. This is strange. Tianyang shook his head. Vast heavens, Holy Spirit, what do you think? Tianyang had only spent about 2 weeks cultivating the indestructible body. There was still more than half a year before the vast heavens sacred mountain closed. This is strange. The vast heavens Holy Spirit spoke. It's been 2 weeks, but I still haven't broken the 9 heavenly seals of the vast heavens, sacred mountain. In my memory, the 9 heavenly seals are the seals that the Heaven's Expanse Emperor Lord set up back then. They were accidentally leaked out. Although there are 9 layers, they are very simple and should be easy to break. That way, you can directly go and obtain the Heaven's Expanse Emperor Lord's treasures. However, the 9 heavenly seals are simple, but they are very chaotic. The vast heavens, Holy Spirit said. There was a hint of worry in his voice. However, after thinking for a while, he did not say it out loud. After all, it's a treasure left behind by an emperor. The other vast heavens' holy palace that you absorbed did not fully absorb it. She might not have the complete information. In this vast heavens' sacred mountain, only we can take the treasure that the vast heavens' emperor left behind. That's enough. Tianyang smiled. Hearing that, the vast heavens' Holy Spirit did not reply. Instead, he replied with a simple and continued to study. Tianyang raised his head and released the power of his primordial spirit. His eyes flickered. This vast heavens' sacred mountain was really a meat grinder. Within the range of Tianyang's primordial spirit, there were many corpses that were not even cold yet. Just as Tianyang was about to find someone to ask, a resplendent radiance was suddenly released in the distance. A light screen seemed to connect the heavens and the earth. Then it fell rapidly. Instantly, Tianyang heard a few crucial words. Chapter 15:18. The second level of the heavenly seal. Tianyang's sharp senses captured these words. Then, he looked at the heavenly seal in the distance. The heavenly seal continued to fall, but many people had already leaped into the air and crossed the heavenly seal. Vast sky, godly mountain, 9 levels of heavenly seal. Now it seemed that the heavenly seal was the second level of heavenly seal. However, if it's a seal, why would it open automatically? Tianyang could not help but ponder for a while. However, since he could not solve it, Tianyang threw it aside. The 8th change of the heavenly expanse 9 changes was unleashed. Whoosh! In an instant, he disappeared on the spot. Since the second level of the 9 levels of heavenly seal had opened, the treasures in the second level of heavenly seal must have appeared. Aya, isn't this brother Yang Tian? I've been looking for you in the first level of heavenly seal for a while, but I couldn't find you. Big brother, where did you run off to? Just as Tianyang was flying, a loud voice rang in his ears. Tianyang did not need to turn his head to know who it was. It was none other than the fighting 10 parties who had been bombarded by Jiang Haoxuan, Lin Fenghua, and a guy named Wu Zhou the moment he appeared. Tianyang could not recognize this voice that was full of vulgarity. Why aren't you replying? At this moment, the fighting 10 parties came in front of Tianyang with a grin. The purple lightning on the purple lightning godly spear in his hand slowly retracted. I heard from little sister Jiang Xian that you even beat up Jiang Haoxuan. You even took 2 of his ancient suppression heavenly eyes full force attacks and directly caused him to become autistic. It's a pity that I didn't see it back then. Can you tell me more about it? The fighting 10 parties laughed casually. Hearing this, Tianyang immediately turned around. He passed through the fighting 10 parties and flew forward. Aya, that's not interesting. Seeing this, fighting 10 parties suddenly shouted, I'm not here to fight you one-on-one. You don't have to be so cold. I'm so handsome, and I'm going to be hurt if you treat me so coldly. Fighting 10 parties said. Hearing this, Tianyang's mouth twitched. This fellow really dared to say such things. However, Tianyang had no choice but to open his mouth. What? In the divine world, other than the Enigma Fire Dynasty, he basically did not know anyone else. The Undying Prince knew Luo Yunyang. However, he knew Luo Yunyang well. Tianyang was not stupid. Experts, especially experts like Zhan Shifang who had climbed out of mountains of corpses and seas of blood like the Nether Spring underworld, were definitely not fools. There must be a reason for him to come uninvited. I like talking to smart people. Brother Yang Tian is a smart person. Hearing this, the Fighting Ten Party's eyes also revealed a sharp light. Back then, Jiang Haoxuan and Lin Fenghua were idiot. They didn't know what I wanted to do, so I messed with them. Brother Yang Tian is a smart person. Then, it's easy to talk about it. The Fighting Ten Party smiled and said, I wonder how much Brother Yang Tian knows about the second-level restriction of Vast Sky Divine Mountain? I don't know much, Tianyang said directly. Even though they were talking, they were still flying forward. Now, they had reached a higher level and stepped into the second-level restriction of Vast Sky Divine Mountain. Tianyang also noticed that the Fighting Ten Parties seemed to be consciously flying in a certain direction. Haha. Brother Yang Tian is honest. However, since you're from the outside, it's normal that you don't know much about Vast Sky Divine Mountain in the Cloud Fire territory. Although the first heavenly seal of the vast firmament Sacred Mountain is the first heavenly seal, the opportunities within it are not the worst. On the contrary, there are high and low heavenly seals. Some people might step into a pile of shit when the second-level restriction opens. Some people might find a divine artifact left behind from ancient times. The Fighting Ten Parties said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded slightly. If they were ranked according to strength, he would not be able to get the indestructible body that he had just obtained unless he entered the last 3 levels restriction. However, the second level of the Heavenly Seal is different. There are scattered treasures, but most of them are in a large hall. The Fighting Ten Parties laughed and said, that is the real treasure trove of the second-level restriction of Vast Sky Divine Mountain. The Great Sun Sect, the Jiang clan, and the 5 states all have a grudge against me. 2 fists can't fight against 4 hands. Why don't Brother Yang Tian join me? In this way, the Jiang clan and the Great Sun Sect will have nothing to fear. The Fighting Ten Parties' eyes were shining as he laughed loudly. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression did not change at all. He quietly looked at the Fighting Ten Parties. You mean, I join forces with you to go to the treasure trove, and then help you offend the Great Sun Sect, the Jiang clan, and the other 3 forces that have the absolute advantage in Vast Sky Divine Mountain? Tianyang chuckled and said, when the time comes, if you stab me, won't I be attacked from both sides? Then, everything will be convenient for you. Tianyang chuckled, but there was a trace of distrust in his eyes. It was clear as day. Hearing this, the Fighting Ten Parties were also stunned. They did not expect that such a tempting suggestion would be rejected by Tianyang without even thinking about it. But now, haven't you offended the Great Sun Sect and the Jiang clan? If you join forces with me, not only can your battle strength increase greatly, but you can also get more treasures. Even if you encounter Lin Fenghua, Jiang Haoxuan, and the other 3 from the 5 states, you can definitely escape unscathed. The Fighting Ten Parties persuaded. However, in the next moment, Tianyang left in a flash. Not interested, but thank you for bringing me here. Tianyang's laughter slowly came. At this time, the Fighting Ten Parties realized that they had actually brought Tianyang to the treasure trove. He could not help but smile and shook his head. If that's the case, then forget it. Even the Nether Spring is under my feet. I, the Fighting Ten Parties, can deal with this vast Heaven Divine Hall by myself. Then, the Fighting Ten Parties raised the purple lightning godly spear and rushed towards the majestic hall below. Below, Tianyang had already landed on the ground. With the strength of his half-step divine soul, he easily avoided everyone and came to a corner, carefully observing the hall in front of him. The hall was not open and no aura leaked out. However, as Tianyang looked, he felt that something was wrong. This vast Heaven Divine Hall seemed to be somewhat familiar. Tianyang's heart moved, and the vast Heaven Divine Hall's origin energy appeared in his hand. Almost everything in this vast Heaven Divine Mountain could be related to the vast Heaven Emperor. Since that was the case, using the vast Heaven Divine Hall's origin energy to probe was the best choice. Tianyang slammed his palm against the wall of the main hall. Suddenly, Streams of powerful vast heaven divine hall's origin energy rushed into the hall. All of a sudden rays of mysterious light were released from the majestic but pitch-black palace. Mysterious runes lit up one after another, releasing an incomparably tyrannical aura. What's going on? Suddenly, someone realized that something was wrong with the vast heaven divine hall, and his expression changed drastically. Tianyang's expression also changed when he saw the mysterious lines. Chapter 15:19. Heaven's Expanse Temple? Tianyang immediately recognized the source of this sense of familiarity when he sensed something familiar about the hall. He had been talking to the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit, but he rarely entered the Heaven's Expanse Temple in the Vientiane Sky ruins. Therefore, even though the temple was very similar to the Heaven's Expanse Temple, Tianyang did not recognize it immediately. Isn't the vast sky holy mountain formed by the Heaven's Expanse Emperor's treasure seal? The Heaven's Expanse Temple is a fragment of the Heaven's Expanse Temple. Why would it appear here? Tianyang immediately realized that something was wrong. According to the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit's memory, when the Heaven's Expanse Temple was torn apart and scattered to the myriad worlds, the Heaven's Expanse Emperor seemed to have undergone a great change. Where did he get the time to leave this treasure behind? The timing did not match at all. This Heaven's Expanse Temple. What's going on? Even the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit, who was focused on breaking the 9 heavenly seals on the vast sky holy mountain, was shocked. The slightly immature voice was filled with disbelief. The vast sky holy mountain and the Heaven's Expanse Emperor had a close relationship, and the Heaven's Expanse Temple was even more closely related to the Heaven's Expanse Emperor. However, it was impossible for the Heaven's Expanse Temple to appear here. Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit, could it be that the Heaven's Expanse Emperor had created a half-finished product before he created the Heaven's Expanse Temple? Tianyang asked. If that was not the case, there was no other explanation. Not in my memory. Not in her memory either. The Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit spoke slowly, his tone solemn. However, your vast expanse force from before seemed to have opened this palace too. If you don't go in, the others might have already gone in. The Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit's voice rang out. Hearing that, Tianyang was shocked. He nodded slightly and his body flashed. The powerful primordial spirit of a half-step godly soul was released, forcing everyone away and blocking their senses. He was the first to rush into the Heaven's Expanse Temple. What entered his eyes was not the Heaven's Expanse Temple that he had seen for the first time in the 9 universe sky ruins. Instead, it was a vast space. Dragons coiled around the pillars, and the clouds at the top of the sky seemed to have a vast energy flowing within them. Although Tianyang was the first to enter, there were still quite a number of people who rushed into the Heaven's Expanse Saint Hall. It was as if they were already familiar with this place. As soon as they stepped in, they rushed in all directions without any hesitation. Since they are already so familiar with the place, the treasures inside should have already been plundered. Why are there still so many people entering the palace? Tianyang muttered to himself, but his movements did not slow down. Among the countless great sages, half-saint emperors and saint emperors, he chose the one who seemed to be the most familiar with the palace. He secretly released the power of his nascent divinity to envelop himself before following the others. This person looked ordinary. Although he had the battle prowess of a half-holy emperor, he seemed to be very timid. After looking around and discovering that no one was following him, he let out a sigh of relief and flew towards a certain direction at full speed. However, he did not know. Under the effect of Tianyang's powerful nascent divinity, even if Tianyang was standing in front of him, he would not be able to see Tianyang. At this moment, Tianyang was swaggering behind the half-holy emperor. The space within the Heaven's Expanse Temple seemed to be abnormally huge. Although the Heaven's Expanse Temple in the Vientiane Sky ruins was huge, it was at most the size of an ordinary city like the Tianshao Great World, Yun City of the Snowy Nation, or Yang Tian City. However, this Heaven's Expanse temple, this half-holy emperor, had cultivated some kind of origin energy. His speed was so fast that it was almost at the third change of the Heaven's Expanse 9 changes. Although he had only flown for a few minutes, he was probably tens of thousands of miles away. Although there were some twists and turns, it was many times bigger than the one in Tianyang's Vientiane sky ruins. "I've finally found it." The half-holy emperor flew quickly. Finally, after making 7 or 8 turns and confirming that no one was following him, he took out a map. On the map, there was the terrain of the Heaven's Expanse temple. After that, the half-holy emperor made a few gestures on the map and happily moved to a small temple. However, as soon as the half-martial dominator tried to enter the palace, runes appeared on the door of the small palace. A powerful force flowed within the runes to stop the half-martial dominator. "There's a formation." The half-holy emperor's expression changed slightly. He activated his half-holy emperor force and punched out. However, the formation only circulated a ray of light and easily blocked the half-holy emperor's attack. The half-holy emperor's expression changed when he saw this. He clenched his teeth unwillingly and wisps of white energy appeared in his hand. "Heavenly Cloud Divine Path!" the half-holy emperor shouted. In the next moment, his true origin energy exploded and burned around him like a flame. He punched out. Unfortunately, the formation did not budge. Even though the Heavenly Cloud Divine Path's attack was the half-holy emperor's full-force attack, it did not change at all. Seeing this, the half-holy emperor's eyes flashed with a trace of unwillingness. "Am I going to stop here? It seems that even a holy emperor can't open this formation. I wonder if you need help?" At this moment, a light laugh sounded. Tianyang removed the half-holy primordial spirit's barrier and laughed lightly. However, from the half-holy emperor's point of view, what should have been empty beside her was a young man who had suddenly appeared. F***CK. The half-holy emperor instinctively punched out with holy Tao energy. However, Tianyang smiled slightly and stretched out his hand to block the attack. "Don't worry. I've been following you all the way. If I wanted to attack you, I would have done so long ago." Tianyang laughed lightly. Hearing this, the half-holy emperor was even more shocked. He had been following him all the way and he did not even realize it? How powerful was this person? "However, the holy Tao that you cultivate is a little interesting." Tianyang looked at the remaining Heavenly Cloud Divine Path's power in his hand. "It's a little similar to the power of the vast sky Divine Mountain." Hearing this, the half-holy emperor's expression changed. This holy Tao was indeed comprehended by me according to the power of the vast sky Divine Mountain. But this doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. The half-holy emperor's voice trembled. The person beside him seemed to be much more powerful than him. This meant that his life was under Tianyang's control. How could the half-holy emperor not tremble? A half-holy emperor could only be considered below average among the countless experts who had entered the vast sky Divine Mountain. Indeed, it doesn't matter. However, I'm a little interested in the map you took out earlier. Tianyang smiled slightly, and a sharp light flashed in his hand. Seeing this, the half-holy emperor trembled even more. Chapter 15:20. "What's your name?" Tianyang chuckled. The sharp blade in his hand flickered with flickering light, as if it could disappear and reappear in his neck at any moment. Seeing this, the half-holy emperor was even more terrified. However, this fear could not be turned into strength. "I'm Tianming, from Lu Xiong City in the Cloud Fire Territory. I'm a peak half-holy emperor and about to condense origin. I'm 282 years old. I obtained this map by chance. In order to attain the Saint Emperor level in the vast sky Divine Mountain," the half-holy emperor, called Tianming, hurriedly said. He did not dare to stammer. In front of an existence that could wipe him off the face of this world at any time, if he were to stammer and make the other party unhappy, the sharp light might chop off his head immediately. You're only a peak half-holy emperor at 200 years old. How did you enter the vast sky divine mountain? Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes were filled with curiosity as he asked. To enter the vast sky divine mountain, one must first possess vast power. The Cloud Fire Territory's various factions had worked together to create countless Cloud Fire Path tokens. In reality, they sealed the vast power that leaked from the vast sky divine mountain into the tokens. They used it as a pass to enter the vast sky divine mountain. Originally, the vast power that leaked from the vast sky divine mountain should have been released randomly in the surroundings. Then, the people who entered the vast sky divine mountain would also be randomly selected. Unfortunately, the various factions in the Cloud Fire Territory had discovered the vast sky divine mountain too early and monopolized the right to enter the vast sky divine mountain. When Zhang Ming and Ling Fei came to the Xuanhua dynasty to find people, they had all sorts of requirements. Tian Ming was not qualified at all. Hearing this, Tian Ming said awkwardly. Although he did not want to say it, he had to say it in order to survive. The disciple that the Great Sun sect sent to Lu Xiong City happened to be my nephew. Hence, I came in. Hearing this, Tianyang immediately understood. Tian Ming had connections. However, Tianyang did not intend to pursue this matter. Tian Ming's connections did not affect him. It was none of his business. What's the origin of that map? Tianyang was curious. The vast sky divine mountain was not created by humans. Naturally, no one could create a map. Although he had only taken a quick glance, he could see that the map was complete. At first glance, it was obvious that it was made by someone. I don't know either. I just happened to get this map and came here to try my luck. I've been here many times, so I know the layout of the palace. Tian Ming said. Tianyang nodded slightly. Tian's. Is this map? I'll give it to you, sir. I wonder. Is Heavenly Sun Path. Tian Ming's hair stood on end when he heard this. His expression was even uglier than if his father had died. It was obvious what kind of person he was. Why did he not suppress the heavens and earth to get the treasure? Why did he target him, a guy who had not broken through to the Holy Emperor realm after coming to vast sky divine mountain so many times? However, even so, Tian Ming had no choice but to accept his fate. I wonder, what's your name, sir? Tianyang smiled. Yang Tian. Tian Ming was stunned. Then, his body shook and his pupils constricted. Yang Tian? The terrifying person who forced Lin Fenghua to retreat, defeated Jiang Haoshuan, and looked down on the Great Sun sect and the Jiang clan? He had met Yang Tian? A strong sense of shock instantly struck Tian Ming's chest. The way he looked at Tianyang also changed. This kind of existence, who had suppressed two of the three strongest geniuses in the Cloud Fire Territory, had been following him in the vast Heaven Divine Hall. Just for that map. Could it be that the map contained some incomparably terrifying and powerful treasure? Tianyang didn't know that Tian Ming's heart was racing after hearing his fake name. He casually glanced at the array formation on the door in front of him and understood. He did not know if the array was set up by the Heaven's Expanse Emperor Lord. Although it used the Heaven's Expanse energy as its source of energy, it was much weaker than the Heaven's Expanse Temple in the Vientiane Sky ruins. It was like him, who had just condensed the array Dao origin and had not even seen the door of the God realm. Because Tianyang had condensed the array Dao origin, the Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit was much more generous. He gave Tianyang many array discs and array diagrams in the Heaven's Expanse Temple. Originally, these things belonged to the Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit after the main body of the Heaven's Expanse Temple was torn apart. He could give them to whoever he wanted. The Heaven's Expanse Divine Stair was just an excuse. Only the top items in the Heaven's Expanse divine stair could not be easily taken away by the Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit. Tianyang's current understanding of the array Tao might not be as good as his understanding of the sword Tao origin. However, to deal with such a lousy Saint Emperor's array, Tianyang only needed snap. He snapped his fingers. As Tianyang snapped his fingers, a powerful array Tao origin energy was released from Tianyang's fingers. Although he could use the reversing array technique, Tianyang did not want to complicate things that could be simple. The Heavenly Sun's array Tao origin source power was like a gust of wind that violently swallowed up the array on the door. In the next moment, countless overbearing and terrifying array Tao origin energy exploded. The entire array was dismantled and rebuilt. In the end, it was torn apart and turned into the most basic Heaven's Expanse energy and dissipated. Some of it did not dissipate and was even swallowed by Tianyang. However, Tianyang realized that the Heaven's Expanse energy was not the Heaven's Expanse Emperor Realm Expanse energy in the Cloud Fire Path Seeking token. However, Tianyang did not care. "It's open just like that?" Seeing this, Tianming opened his mouth wide, as if an entire fist could be stuffed in. Previously, he had activated his Saint Tao, unleashed his full strength, and even burned his true essence, but he could not shake the array at all. In Yang Tian's hands, with a snap of his fingers, it was all done? Did the difference have to be so big? All right. Tianyang nodded slightly. Then, let's go in. Tianyang's lips curled up. He had a feeling that this small hall in the Heaven's Expanse Temple. Chapter 15:21. It was as if the door did not have any other defensive mechanism other than the formation destroyed by Tianyang with a snap of his fingers. Tianyang and Tianming entered easily. However, Tianyang was surprised. The space within this small palace was actually not small. Tianyang released the power of his primordial spirit, and everything within a 10,000-mile radius was under Tianyang's control. However, the small palace only had a diameter of 1,000 miles. This was after taking into account the extra space, such as the other small spaces in the palace. If the main body was included, it would be about 900 miles. This area is about the same as the one in the Vientiane Sky ruins. Tianyang nodded slightly. Tianming shivered as he felt that something was not right. What did he mean? What was the Vientiane Sky ruins? Could it be that the vast Heaven Divine Hall that belonged to the vast Heaven Divine Mountain existed in other places as well? However, Tianming had been to other realms around the Cloud Fire territory, but he had never heard of the Vientiane Sky ruins. Instantly, in Tianming's eyes, Tianyang was covered with layers of mysterious veils. Of course, there was also the veil. The structure is about the same as the one in the Vientiane Sky ruins. Interesting. Could this be the real vast Heaven Divine Hall? Tianyang smiled. Then, he brought Tianming with him, and flew into the cave in a flash. In fact, Tianyang did not want to bring along a half-holy king. However, although Tianming was weak, there was one thing that Tianyang admired. The second heaven seal of the vast Heaven Divine Mountain had appeared several times. This meant that this person was very familiar with the vast Heaven Divine Hall and the second heaven seal of the vast Heaven Divine Mountain. Tianyang did not have any information on hand and was confused about the entire vast Heaven Divine Mountain. With such a good guide, how could Tianyang let him slip away? However, if Tianming knew that he had become Tianyang's guide because of a few words that he had blurted out in a panic, he would definitely slap himself. He did not know how many times he would slap himself. This is the boundless divine level. When he passed by a place, Tianyang suddenly stopped. Steps that seemed to lead to the heavens were placed in front of Tianyang. Back when he had first encountered the Heaven's Expanse Temple in the Nine-Universe Sky ruins, when Ling Yuhan had almost died because of Xianyuan Chongqing, Tianyang had frantically charged through the Heaven's Expanse Divine Stair. Naturally, he had a deep impression of the Heaven's Expanse God stage that had given him the 9 transformations. However, The vast expanse divine stare and the vast expanse divine stare in the Vientiane sky ruins were vastly different, apart from their similar appearances. For example, there was no power of the vast expanse. Even the Saint King formations on the door that seemed to have been powered by inferior vast expanse force did not have the energy to do so. There's a feeling of death. Tianyang frowned slightly. Then, as if he had thought of something, his figure suddenly flashed. Tianming did not even have the time to check if this dead, vast expanse god tier contained any fortuitous opportunities before he was snatched away by Tianyang. Swoosh. Swoosh. Although he had mastered the spacetime origin, the special spacetime in the vast expanse Holy Mountain made it impossible for Tianyang to open the space door anytime and anywhere. However, with the speed of the 9 transformations, Tianyang was able to reach that place almost like the number 1 family. The Heavens Expanse Temple is a split of the Heavens Expanse Temple, and the Heavens Expanse Temple has a structure specially prepared for weapon spirits. Therefore, the Heavens Expanse Temple also has such a structure. This place is almost certain to be a split of the Heavens Expanse Temple. Therefore, it's possible that there's a weapon spirit here. Tianyang's eyes were burning with flames as he looked at the building that looked like a hall in front of him. His right hand was burning with balls of true flames of destruction. Break. If the Heavens Expanse Holy Spirit devoured the other Heavens Expanse Temple weapon spirit, then the Heavens Expanse Holy Spirit would definitely become stronger again. Perhaps it might even recover more memories. Tianyang did not forget that the reason why the Heavens Expanse Holy Spirit chose to follow him was so that he could collect the Heavens Expanse Temple and devour it continuously. One day, it would return to the complete Heavens Expanse Temple. Now that there was such an opportunity, Tianyang naturally would not hold back. This is, on the other hand, when Tianming saw the structure of the hall, his face turned pale and his body trembled. Lord Yang Tian. Wait a minute. Just as Tianming shouted, the true flames of destruction in Tianyang's right hand suddenly bombarded the hall. Boom! A terrifying loud sound was heard, and balls of black flames rushed to the sky. At this moment, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. In front of the true flames of destruction that had been upgraded to Stage 9, the hall was completely destroyed without any resistance. However, after the destruction, what came out was not what Tianyang had imagined. It was the weapon spirit of the Heavens Expanse Temple. Instead, demonic chi. Balls of black and chaotic air currents rushed out fiercely. It's demonic chi. Tianming seemed to have confirmed something. His face changed drastically, and he shouted in a trembling voice. Lord Yang Tian. It's demonic chi. Run quickly. Run quickly! Tianming shouted crazily. Hearing that, Tianyang frowned slightly. From what he could sense, although the demonic chi was strong, it was only at the level of an ordinary half-holy emperor. In terms of threat, it was not even 1% of the sky-devouring demon god that he had encountered in the Black Sky Great World. What was wrong with Tianming? Even if he was a half-holy emperor, he would not be so cowardly. Get lost! The ball of demonic chi roared crazily and charged toward Tianyang. As for Tianyang, he merely opened his mouth and spat out a single syllable. In the next moment, the violent and powerful demonic chi seemed to have been blown away by a gust of wind and instantly dissipated. At the same time, a sword-shaped mark appeared between Tianyang's eyebrows. A sword shot out from it and charged into the chaotic ball of demonic chi. Devour! Tianyang snorted coldly. At the same time, the power of the sword realm suppressed the ball of demonic chi. The Tianyang sword swept across and devoured the ball of demonic chi. A 9-colored light flashed across the surface of the sword before it flew back into Tianyang's soul sea. The ball of demonic chi was devoured by the Tianyang sword just like that. It did not even give the Tianyang sword a chance to level up. After all, after merging with the Tsang Emperor sword, The Tianyang sword did not level up even after devouring the sky-devouring demon god's demonic chi, let alone this ball of demonic chi. However, Tianyang still felt that it was a pity and he sighed. The demonic chi is gone just like that? Tianming's mouth was agape and his pupils constricted. He looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. That infamous demonic aura was gone just like that? Tianyang, on the other hand, ignored Tianming's actions and walked straight into the ruins of the hall. He looked at the empty crystal in the middle and frowned slightly. As expected. Chapter 1522. There was no weapon spirit. Tianyang looked at the empty crystal with a heavy heart. When the vast expanse Holy Spirit knew that he was coming to the vast expanse Holy Mountain, he told him a lot of information about the vast expanse Emperor Lord and the vast expanse Holy Palace. There was one of them. If the weapon spirit of the vast expanse Holy Palace could appear, he would leave the weapon spirit hall immediately. As for the weapon spirit crystal in the weapon spirit hall, as long as the weapon spirit existed, it would always shine. However, the crystal in front of him, it was a clear blue color, but that was it. The base of the crystal had been dyed black by the demonic chi, and there was even some darkness at the end. Furthermore, there was no light at all. Tianyang reached out his hand and touched it gently. Crack! The blue crystal suddenly shattered. Did the demonic chi destroy the weapon spirit, or is there some other reason? Tianyang muttered to himself. The vast expanse Holy Palace was a powerful treasure that surpassed ordinary divine weapons. The weapon spirit could be divided infinitely, so it was impossible that there was no weapon spirit in the first place. In other words, there should have been a weapon spirit in this place. Vast expanse Holy Spirit, what do you think? Tianyang asked in his heart. The vast expanse Holy Spirit replied immediately, his voice solemn. Give me the weapon spirit crystal fragments. Hearing that, Tianyang nodded slightly and reached out his hand. The weapon spirit crystal was immediately sent into the vast expanse Holy Palace in the Vientiane Sky Market. Of course, before that, Tianyang had already devoured all the demonic chi on it. The vast expanse Holy Spirit was silent again. Breaking the 9 heavenly seals had already consumed a lot of vast expanse Holy Spirit's energy, and now there was one more. Tianyang shook his head. There were too many secrets in the vast expanse Holy Mountain. He thought that he could pick up something and leave. What's with that look in your eyes? At this moment, Tianyang finally noticed Tianming's eyes, which were filled with respect, fear, and admiration. No. Tianming's voice was trembling, and his lips were trembling. Lord Yang Tian, you destroyed the demonic chi? It's just the demonic chi of a half-holy emperor. I can easily destroy it. I can even fight half-holy emperors who are slightly stronger than you. What's so strange about destroying it? Tianyang asked curiously. This demonic chi was about the same level as Tianming, and it did not have any spiritual intelligence. Even if Tianming's half-holy emperor status was achieved through the accumulation of countless opportunities in the vast sky divine mountain, he shouldn't be so cowardly in comparison. No. That's demonic energy. It's the devil energy that causes the entire god realm to tremble in fear. Even Lin Fenghua, Jiang Haoshuan, and the most powerful geniuses in the cloud fire territory in the 5 states would have trouble dealing with the devil chi. Tianming said in a trembling voice. Although the demonic chi was only at the level of a half-holy emperor, if it was released, it's enough to destroy an entire dynasty. Even Luxiong City might be destroyed by it. There were traces of demonic chi in the hall from before. That's why I told you not to make a move. Tianming said fearfully. Hearing this, Tianyang was dumbfounded. What the hell? Indeed, the demonic chi looked terrifying and difficult to deal with. However, it shouldn't be to this extent. Even if Luxiong City wasn't at the godly state, it should be at least a half-god. Wasn't it easy to destroy a demonic chi that was only at the level of a half-holy emperor? Demonic chi is extremely difficult to destroy. Moreover, it can easily absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to increase its strength. If it grows to a certain level, even a holy emperor would not be able to deal with the demonic qi of a half-holy emperor. Therefore, Lord Yang Tian destroyed the demonic qi with a flip of his hand. "He's really powerful," Tianming said. He didn't forget to flatter Lin Fan to save the situation. Hearing this, Tianyang thought for a while. Indeed, demonic qi was not easy to deal with. When the demonic blood in the Dragon Emperor's body exploded, he went into seclusion for 1,000 years. Although he was severely injured, Tianyang would have died without him. It was obvious that demonic qi was not easy to deal with. However, did it have to be like this? "How many times have you seen demonic qi?" Tianyang frowned. Hearing this, Tianming was stunned. "I've cultivated for a few hundred years, but I've never seen it. It's said that demonic qi only appears once every tens of thousands of years or even hundreds of thousands of years in the cloud fire territory. However, every time demonic qi appears, it can destroy a city if it's light, or a country if it's heavy. It can cause endless chaos. That's why the cloud fire territory is so afraid." Hearing this, Tianyang's mouth twitched. Tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, whether it was the Tianshao Great World or the Xiantian Great World, which one of them hadn't seen hundreds of battles, the demonic race would go on an expedition once every 10,000 years. For a powerful world like the Xiantian Great World, it was still fine as it could be dealt with without paying a huge price. However, the Tianshao Great World had to fight to the death every time. Even if they did, there were countless remnants of the demonic race. The spirit of demonic qi in the nest of 1,000 demons, the flame demon king of the Great Void Divine Palace, and the demon emperor who had been sealed in the small world of the earthly emperor for countless years, which one of them wasn't an existence that could shake the world. Tianyang had encountered this kind of thing dozens of times in the 300 years that he had lived in the Tianshao Great World. No wonder. Tianyang spat out these two words. It was only seen once in tens of thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years. It was no wonder that the cloud fire realm could not withstand it. Seeing this, although Tianming didn't say anything, the curiosity in his eyes grew stronger. Where did this Yang Tian come from? Even the demonic qi could be suppressed so easily? However, you might be disappointed. There aren't any powerful opportunities in this palace, Tianyang said. Hearing this, Tianming was stunned and immediately showed great disappointment. He had come here for the opportunity to break through to the Holy Emperor level. His heavenly cloud path was formed by imitating the vast path of the vast sky sacred mountain. If he wanted to condense the origin, he had to rely on the vast sky sacred mountain. The second level of heavenly restriction was the limit of a half-holy emperor like him. However, it's not impossible for you to break through to the Holy Emperor level, Tianyang added. Hearing this, Tianming was stunned again. In the next moment, a loud roar suddenly sounded. Yang Tian, you scoundrel! How dare you humiliate my great sun sect's senior brother Lin Fenghua and humiliate my great-great-sun sect? Come out and die. Following it, several powerful auras soared into the sky. Every aura had the strength of a holy emperor. Great-great-sun sect. Hearing this loud roar, Tianming was so scared that his face turned pale and he sat on the ground. The Great Sun sect had actually come? The strongest overlord of the cloud fire territory, the Great Sun sect, had actually come to besiege Tianyang? Tianming closed his eyes and could feel the huge lineup of the Great Sun sect. This Yang Tian had actually offended the Great Sun sect? You're finally here. Otherwise, I would have thought that the Fighting 10 parties were inefficient. Tianyang smiled and walked out of the hall with Tianming. Outside, there was already a circle of Great Sun sect disciples. Chapter 15:23. The Great Sun sect. These 3 words were enough to make the entire cloud fire territory tremble. Whether it was the peak of the godly state, the middle pillars of the great saints and holy emperors, or the geniuses of the saint state and below. The Great Sun sect was undoubtedly the overlord of the cloud fire territory. This time, the Great Sun sect came to vast firmament sacred mountain prepared. Not only did they send out Lin Fenghua, a peak holy emperor on the true dragon roll and one of the three great geniuses of the cloud fire territory, they also sent out many geniuses who had hopes of reaching the top 50 of the hidden dragon roll and even the top 5,000 of the true dragon roll. In vast sky sacred mountain, as long as one obtained an opportunity, they would definitely soar. Now what did Tianming see? Such an existence had actually sent out so many disciples to encircle him? Uncle Tianming? At this moment, among the group of Great Sun sect disciples, one of the weaker ones spoke in surprise and bewilderment as he looked at Tianming, who was beside Tianyang. Uncle Tianming, why are you beside Yang Tian? No. Seeing this, Tianming's face instantly turned pale. Just as he was about to speak, he noticed Tianyang's seemingly emotionless expression. Instantly, his heart skipped a beat. If he ran over to the Great Sun sect now, then Yang Tian, he would probably only need to use one finger to kill him. Tianming was very clear about his own capabilities. Tian Xinjian, is this the Uncle Tianming that you wasted who knows how many cloud fire path tokens? At this moment, one of the leaders of the Great Sun sect frowned and spoke. He turned to look at the disciple who had mentioned Tianming earlier. There were many cloud fire path tokens in the Great Sun sect. It was not uncommon for disciples to give them to those who were not qualified for it for their own selfish reasons or in exchange for benefit. However, most of these people were unknown in the cloud fire path token. Even if they died, it would not have much impact on the Great Sun sect. Therefore, the Great Sun sect could be considered to have tacitly agreed to this action. However, even if it was tacitly agreed, it could not be done. The cloud fire path tokens that allowed the Great Sun sect to leave had been given to the enemy? Hearing that, the disciple immediately panicked, and he didn't care about his Uncle Tianming as he hurriedly spoke. No, that's not it. Senior, listen to me. Tianming doesn't have any talent at all. He only agreed to it under the pressure of my father. This person is despicable and shameless. He used his status as my uncle to force me to hand over the cloud fire path seeking token. I didn't make a fuss about it because he was my uncle. However, I never expected that he would dare to be with Yang Tian. The next moment, the disciple of the sacred emperor realm called Tian Xinjian jumped out with a vicious look in his eyes. I'll kill him now. Clear the name of the Great Sun sect. Tian Xinjian roared. In the next moment, his figure flashed and he charged forward. Sharp blades suddenly flashed in his hands. Die. Seeing this, Tianming was completely dumbfounded. He was just a small half-sacred emperor. Where did he get the guts to force a sacred emperor, and a sacred emperor who was a disciple of the Great Sun sect? He had even spent a lot of favors to attract many beauties to serve him. He had served Tian Xinjian so well that he could die from pleasure. In the end, it had turned out like this? He didn't even have a chance to explain? Since that's the case, you have to settle it yourself. Because you know your mistakes and can change, the punishment of being expelled from the sect will be waived for now. However, when you return to the sect in the future, the punishment that should be meted out will not be lesser. The leader of the sacred emperor realm disciples said. Hearing that, Tian Xinjian's heart calmed down, and killing intent burst out from his eyes. I'm sorry, uncle. For the future of the younger generation, I can only sacrifice your name a little. The sharp blade shone with a cold light. In the next moment, it slashed towards Tianming. Lord Yang Tian, save me! Tianming knew that Tian Xinjian was determined to kill him for him. He immediately shouted for help. As for Tianyang, he looked at the sharp blade in Tian Xinjian's hand with interest. Could it be that the Great Sun sect is also a sword sect? Then, he raised his right hand. A strong airflow instantly gushed out. Although Tianyang didn't use any of his true yuan, the power was still extremely terrifying. Seeing that, Tian Xinjian's expression changed drastically. The sharp blade in his hand immediately changed direction and slashed towards the incoming airflow. However, even so, in front of the airflow created by Tianyang's simple action of raising his right hand, Tian Xinjian's sharp blade was still easily shattered. Boom! Tian Xinjian spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body flew out and fell into the crowd of Great Sun sect disciples. What? Forcing himself to land on the ground, Tian Xinjian looked at the shards of the sharp blade that Tianyang had casually deflected with a wave of his hand. With just a raise of his right hand, he had shattered his sun blade? More importantly, there were no traces of true yuan being used. Even the number one person in Great Sun sect, Lin Fenghua, might not have such strength. Is this the Great Sun sect's method? Tianyang disintegrated the shards of the sun blade in his hand into specks of light dust. Then, he understood. This sun-dazzling blade shouldn't be some excessively profound martial technique either. It wasn't on the same level as the destructive power of Jiang Haoxuan's ancient suppression heavenly eyes. With a casual sweep of the primal chaos chi, the entire sun blade had been completely broken. However, the martial technique behind this thing is pretty good. The martial technique was very ordinary. However, the martial technique behind it was different. If Tianyang guessed correctly, this guy should be cultivating the Great Sun sect's famous and powerful martial technique that shocked the entire Cloudfire territory, the Great Sun Divine Art. Humph. Tian Ming, I didn't expect that you would actually rely on this traitor who doesn't respect senior brother Lin Fenghua. At this moment, the leader suddenly let out an angry roar. In the next moment, he stared at Tianyang with burning eyes. Senior brother Lin Fenghua has gone to fight with Jiang Haoxuan, the 5 states, and the rest for the treasure in Vast Sky Divine Hall. However, don't think that you can be unfettered. My Great Sun sect's 64 people who have stepped into Vast Sky Divine Mountain will make you, Yang Tian, fall here. The true yuan of a peak holy emperor was released. In the next moment, all 64 people, except for Tian Xinjian, condensed a long sword burning with flames. Seeing this, Tian Ming's face instantly turned pale. It's over. It's completely over now. He wasn't even a cultivator. Half-Holy Emperor was his limit. Why did he have to get involved in Vast Sky Divine Mountain? Lu Xiongqing's delicacies, beauties, and the little servant girl from the Li family, farewell. 64 core disciples of the Great Sun sect, listen up. The peak Holy Emperor roared. The long sword in his hand released rays of sun force. Chapter 1524. Heavenly Fire Incinerating Sword Formation. A loud and clear roar was heard. The next moment, peak holy kings, late holy kings, mid-holy kings, early holy kings, half-holy kings, and heavenly great saint. Countless powerful auras turned into fire dragons that soared into the sky. The majestic heavenly might was enough to illuminate the world. Long swords that burned with the power of the sun were raised high into the sky. The 64 people seemed to have teleported and shifted their positions instantly. They actually occupied the position of the 8 trigrams in an instant. At the same time, they triggered the chi of heaven and earth and condensed it on the tip of their swords. Crimson red almost filled the entire field of vision. Tian Ming was already prostrating himself on the ground with his hands on the ground. He was gasping for air to maintain his normal state. His eyes were filled with fear. Heavenly Fire Incinerating Sword Formation. It was actually the Heavenly Fire Incinerating Sword Formation. No matter how Tian Ming thought about it, he could not imagine that the Great Sun sect not only sent out 64 inner core disciples to deal with Yang Tian, but also used the Heavenly Fire Incinerating Sword Formation. The Great Sun sect was not a sword sect. However, the Great Sun sect had an old ancestor who was known as the Master of the Heavenly Fire sect. This old ancestor was the one who led the Great Sun sect to conquer the Cloudfire territory and become the overlord of the Cloudfire territory. At the same time, he also passed down countless sword formations, sword techniques, and sword technique. Therefore, after the master of the Heavenly Fire sect, the successive masters of the Great Sun sect all took pride in cultivating sword technique. The various sword techniques and sword formations that he left behind were also cultivated to an extremely prosperous level. Among them, the Heavenly Fire incinerating sword formation was the strongest. In the past, the Heavenly Fire sect master of the Great Sun sect used the Heavenly Fire incinerating sword formation alone to severely injure the Jiang clan's divine Lord Jiang and kill countless demigods. Now, disciples of the Great Sun sect, follow my orders. The peak holy kings roared. Countless sword chi condensed at this moment. Even the sun in the sky shot out countless powerful rays of sun power into the bodies of the 64 inner core disciples of the Great Sun sect. Instantly, the auras of the 64 inner core disciples of the Great Sun sect soared. Apart from those who were middle holy kings and above, the rest had their auras soared by more than a small realm. Even the tyrannical and terrifying sword light in the sky was growing stronger. Seeing this, Tianming's face turned even paler. He had long heard that the Great Sun sect's Heavenly Fire incineration sword formation was incomparably powerful, but Tianming never expected it to be this powerful. To think that he would be so terrifyingly powerful. 64 people, regardless of whether they were Saint Kings or not, had the strength to fight against Saint Kings. Now, relying on the power of the Heavenly Fire incineration sword formation, his strength had risen to another level. In other words, even if Lin Fenghua, Jiang Haoshuan, the 5 prefectures, and even the fighting 10 parties encountered the Heavenly Fire incineration sword array, they could only avoid it. In the next moment, the peak Saint King from the Great Sun sect madly laughed. He looked at Tianyang in disdain as he spoke disdainfully. I thought that since Yang Tian could force senior brother Lin Fenghua to retreat and fight Jiang Haoshuan without losing, you would definitely be a powerful genius in the Cloudfire territory. Now that I look at it, it's just SOSO. Today I, Li Qiongtian, will step on your bones and become one of the 5 great geniuses in the Cloudfire territory. Li Qiongtian, a peak Saint King, laughed loudly. When Lin Fenghua mentioned Yang Tian to him, his face was full of fear, as if Yang Tian was some terrifying genius. If he encountered him, he would definitely go all out. Previously, when someone suddenly gave him the news of Tianyang's location, he had also cautiously gathered all the inner core disciples in the vast heavens sacred mountain and was extremely vigilant before he dared to step in. Now, in the face of such a terrifying Heavenly Fire incineration sword array, he did not destroy it at the moment when it was at its weakest but waited until now. Now, the Heavenly Fire incineration sword array had been formed. Even if Tianyang wanted to break it, it was almost impossible. Instead, he would be attacked by the Heavenly Fire incineration sword array. Li Qiongtian dared to conclude that Yang Tian could not be very strong if he did not even have such basic battle wisdom. Lin Fenghua and Jiang Haoshuan probably underestimated their opponent because their opponent was a nobody, allowing Yang Tian to succeed. Seeing this, Tianming was in complete despair. Good food, beautiful women, good wine, goodbye to all of them. Your Tianming is going to die under the strongest sword array of the Great Sun sect. Seeing this, Tianyang's lips curled up. He looked at the huge sword that had been completely formed. It was as dazzling as a real sun and was surrounded by a crimson halo. The destructive power on it could definitely raise the entire Qingyuan city to the ground. The Great Sun sect was able to dominate the Cloudfire territory and was almost the only overlord. As expected, it had its own foundation. There were many things in the Heavenly Fire incineration sword array that Tianyang was very interested in. However, it's useless to say anything now. Yang Tian, take your arrogance and ignorance with you to hell. Li Qiongtian roared. He controlled the heavenly fire sword and slashed at Tianyang. The space was torn apart instantly. The violent spatial turbulence seemed to serve as a foil and support for the heavenly fire sword array, greatly increasing the power of the heavenly fire incineration sword array. Seeing this, Tianming was in complete despair. He knelt on the ground, not daring to look at the scene in front of him. Tianyang, on the other hand, raised his head and looked at the dazzling greatsword with a gentle smile. The aura of a peak heavenly great saint leaked out. Peak heavenly great saint? Sensing the true essence in Tianyang's body that could be described as weak, Li Qiongtian was stunned. No matter what, Tianyang had fought fiercely with two top prodigies of the Cloudfire territory. At the very least, he was a peak holy emperor. How could it was a whole realm away from the peak holy emperor that he expected? It seems that the fighting 10 parties didn't tell you about my strength when he tricked you into coming here. At this moment, Li Qiongtian's expression changed. Tricked? Fighting 10 parties? Suddenly, Li Qiongtian felt that something was wrong. However, things had already come to this, so he could only roar. Heavenly fire incineration sword array kill. In an instant, the heavenly fire sword bloomed with endless light and slashed down fiercely. On the other hand, Tianyang smiled slightly. A light lit up between his eyebrows. In his eyes, the undying divine fire burned on the surface of his body. Boom! The heavenly fire sword suddenly fell. Just like that, the heavenly sun took the full brunt of this attack. The monstrous sea of fire erupted at this moment. Seeing this, Li Qiongtian's pupils shrank. At this moment, in Tianyang's spirit sea, the tiny person formed by divine chains of order and divine Tao law suddenly opened his eyes. Break! As if it contained divine sound Taoist rhymes, with a soft cry, the sea of fire suddenly shattered as if it had never appeared. The 64 inner core disciples of the Great Sun sect, who formed the heavenly fire incineration sword array, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. They were seriously injured. Lin Fenghua knew that divine Tao law was powerful, but he didn't know the terror of the indestructible body. Fighting 10 parties only knew that Tianyang was strong. Li Qiongtian didn't know anything. Now Li Qiongtian finally understood. There were actually 2 possibilities for not breaking the heavenly fire incineration sword array. One was that he didn't have battle wisdom. Chapter 15:25. Boom! Following a loud explosion, even the frighteningly powerful heavenly flame greatsword from before was completely shattered. It turned into a sky full of flames and completely dissipated. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change. He quietly looked at the 64 people in front of him who had all suffered a backlash and were vomiting blood. He shrugged. To be honest, even Tianyang himself didn't expect the divine Tao law to be so strong. A single word, a single sentence, the divine Tao law released its power, and then the entire heavenly fire greatsword formation collapsed. That's right, it had collapsed. It wasn't because Heavenly Sun was too strong, but because Heavenly Sun's half-step divine soul had used the power of his divine Tao laws to destroy the balance of the entire sword array, causing it to completely collapse. However, Tianyang took the first hit of the heavenly fire greatsword head-on. Even with the indestructible body, it was still much, much worse. This was why Tianyang was shocked. He knew the power of the divine Tao law, but even the indestructible body was so terrifying. This shocked Tianyang. He finally realized the power of the undying bloodline. According to his own investigation, Tian Hao, the possessor of the immortal bloodline, who had awakened the immortal bloodline by accident through atavism, and the undying prince's evaluation, he was almost certain that the density of his immortal bloodline was extremely low. According to Tian Hao, he didn't know how to awaken the undying bloodline with such a concentration. In fact, Tianyang didn't know how he awakened it either. Now that he had cultivated the indestructible body, even his bloodline concentration, which could be considered trash, had become so powerful. Then, what would happen if the undying prince, who came from the undying imperial court, cultivated the indestructible body? The more Tianyong thought about it, the heavier his heart became. After coming to the god world, he realized that the undying prince's strength was so terrifying. But even so, Tianyong didn't waver. He had to move forward. He had to crush everything that stood in his way. With thousands of thoughts running through his mind, Tianyong came back to his senses and realized that the leaders of the 64 Great Sun Sect inner sect disciples had more or less recovered their mobility. After all, Tianyong didn't crush the 64 heaven-grade great sages head-on. Instead, it was the heavenly fire incineration sword formation formed by a small number of geniuses. Tianyong was also unlikely to do so. After all, the total amount of true essence of the 64 of them combined was far greater than that of Lin Fenghua and the fighting 10 parties combined. It was just that their combat power could not be added together. You, who the hell are you? Of these 64 people, as a peak saint emperor, the strongest of all, and also the strongest disciple of the Great Sun Sect, Li Qiongtian recovered the fastest. When others were just able to move their toes, this person could raise his head and speak. Who is it? Hearing this, Tianyong was stunned. There weren't many people who asked this question after being beaten up. There's no one like you in the Cloud Fire territory, the Middle Cloud territory, and the other territories around it. There are very few geniuses with the surname Yang even on the True Dragon leaderboard. Those people are extremely far away from the Cloud Fire territory. It's even more impossible for them to come here to participate in the Cloud Fire Path Forum. Who the hell are you? Li Qiongtian stared at Tianyong and said. Hearing this, Tianyong was stunned. There were so few with the surname Yang? However, Tianyong wouldn't pay too much attention to this loser. I'm whoever you think I am. Then, Tianyong took Tianming and soared into the air, leaving the small palace. Outside the small palace, Tianyong didn't go too far. Instead, he casually found a place to stop and took out the map of the vast heaven palace that he had obtained from Tianming. Lord Yang Tian, you're a magnanimous person. Now that you've even broken the sword formation formed by the 64 inner core disciples of the Great Sun Sect, can you be magnanimous and let me off? Tianming said, trembling. Only now did he realize that the seemingly ordinary Tianyong beside him had no special features. He was actually a lunatic. What kind of status did the Great Sun Sect have? Even if they came knocking on their door, they definitely couldn't fight back even if they had the strength to. If one of them escaped, what followed next would be revenge that would destroy all forces in the Cloud Fire territory except for a few large sects. Most importantly, Tianyong had the opportunity to kill all 64 inner core disciples of the Great Sun Sect, but Tianyong didn't. Instead, he left directly. Which one of the 64 people do you think you can beat? At this moment, Tianyong spoke with a smile. Hearing this, Tianming was stunned. I can't beat even one. Then that's it. Tianyong smiled. Now, other than following me, you'll die if you leave. Now, do you still want to leave? Hearing this, Tianming was stunned. Then, he completely collapsed. That's right. Previously, that good nephew of his, Tian Xinjian, didn't give him a chance to explain and directly attacked him, shattering his last hope of leaving Tianyong alive. Now that Tianyong had destroyed the Great Sun Sect, he could live, but it also meant that he and Tianyong were tied together. Unless all 64 inner core disciples of the Great Sun Sect died, no one would leak the news and he could leave. However, Tianyong didn't. In the past, he probably wouldn't even be able to break through a layer of skin. Moreover, those 64 people might have already recovered by now. Suddenly, Tianming wanted to cry but had no tears. This was an unexpected disaster. Let's not talk about this first. With me here, you won't die even if you die, Tianyong said casually. Previously, that Great Sun Sect disciple, a peak holy emperor, said that Lin Fenghua, the Fighting 10 Parties, and Jiang Haoxuan were together to fight for something. Do you know? The three fellows from the Heavenly Sun Path were all arrogant and proud individuals. If someone else had snatched away an ordinary treasure, they would have let it go. But now these three people were fighting for it? That treasure must be extraordinary. I've been to this vast sky temple many times, and I know all the treasures. Other than a rare treasure that suddenly appeared, there's only one thing that can make a genius like Lin Fenghua lower his face to fight for it. Tianming said. Since he was already tied to Tianyang's chariot, he could only do his best for him. What treasure? Tianyang said with interest. Perhaps it had something to do with the heavens' expanse, Emperor Lord. The semi-finished product of a peak divine artifact, the vast sky exquisite pagoda. On the other side of the vast sky temple, the Fighting 10 Parties, who were in the midst of a fierce battle, suddenly sensed something. The corner of his mouth curled up, and the purple lightning godly spear in his hand emitted streaks of lightning, forcing Lin Fenghua to retreat. But taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Fenghua also punched the Fighting 10 Parties. However, neither side was injured. Fighting 10 Parties, why did you suddenly stop? Lin Fenghua said. Hearing this, the Fighting 10 Parties smiled. Chapter 1526. Yang Tian is coming. Fighting 10 Parties smiled. Upon hearing this, Jiang Haoxuan and Wu Zhou, who were in the midst of fighting, stopped temporarily. At this moment they were fighting for the vast heaven exquisite pagoda, just as Tianming had imagined. However, the final battle had yet to begin. Therefore, it was not intense. They were just testing each other before the battle began. Yang Tian is coming? Upon hearing this, Lin Fenghua's face suddenly darkened. He recalled the time when he broke into Tianyang's cultivation array and was forced to retreat by Tianyang's half-step godly soul. He was forced to use his trump card, and in the end, he had to rely on Tianyang's distraction to escape. On the other hand, Jiang Haoxuan's face was extremely ugly. In his eyes the word suppress glowed faintly. In that battle, Jiang Haoxuan and Lin Fenghua were both defeated. They were defeated miserably. If the Jiang clan had not blocked the news in time, Jiang Haoxuan's reputation would have been destroyed. As for Tianyang, Jiang Haoxuan was also full of killing intent. Yang Tian, the guy who fought with Lin Fenghua and Jiang Haoxuan? On the other hand, Wu Zhou's eyes lit up when he heard this. He was eager to try. He clenched his fists tightly. His skinny body seemed to contain infinite power. In his eyes, the flames of battle were burning. Wu Zhou came from a great force that was almost on par with the overlords of the Cloud Fire territory. He was different from Lin Fenghua, Fighting 10 Parties, and Jiang Haoxuan. Wu Zhou was purely a martial arts fanatic. Previously, when he sparred with Jiang Haoxuan, he almost went all out. Hearing this name that he had heard many times, he was instantly excited. That's right. Hearing this, Fighting 10 Parties nodded slightly. How did you know? Lin Fenghua immediately sensed that something was wrong. Hearing this, the Fighting 10 Parties smiled. Your great Sun Sect's inner core disciple is not bad. You're quite courageous. I sent them a message, saying that the Tianyang had explored the small empty palace. More than 60 of them rushed to that place. I didn't even need to stir them up. In other words, as one of the 3 strongest geniuses in the Cloud Fire territory, your prestige in the Great Sun Sect is indeed not small. Fighting 10 Parties said with a smile. Hearing this, Lin Fenghua's face instantly turned ugly. Fighting 10 Parties put it nicely, but how could he not know that Li Qiongtian and the others were being used by the Fighting 10 Parties? No wonder he was the one who had turned the entire younger generation of the Cloud Fire territory upside down a few decades ago. On the outside, he looked carefree and ignorant of the world, but in fact, he was very good at playing all kinds of dirty tricks. Thinking of this, Lin Fenghua's face suddenly became gloomy to the extreme. The reason why he did not tell Li Qiongtian that Tianyang had divine Tao law and a half-step divine soul was that he was afraid that Li Qiongtian would impulsively challenge Tianyang. The most fatal flaw of the heavenly fire incineration sword formation that he was good at was that it was extremely easy to be affected by divine Tao law. Now that more than 60 people were going, it was just right to exert its greatest power. Li Qiongtian would almost certainly use the heavenly fire incineration sword formation. Don't worry, I've planted spies in that small palace and confirmed that the treasures of your great sun sect are not dead. I didn't expect that this Yang Tian would be so overbearing and so kind. Fighting 10 parties shook his head and said. Hearing this, Lin Fenghua's face became even gloomier. However, since Li Qiongtian and the others were fine, Lin Fenghua also breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he looked coldly at the fighting 10 parties. I know what you mean. It's nothing more than joining forces to deal with Yang Tian. Since Li Qiongtian and the others are fine, I'll agree to you this time. However, I, Lin Fenghua, will remember the debt of using my great sun sect's inner core disciples. Lin Fenghua said coldly. Hearing this, Jiang Haoshuan also nodded slightly, anger flashing in his eyes. Back then, Tianyang had taken 2 of the strongest attacks of the ancient suppression heavenly eyes and even asked to be humiliated again. He wanted a bloodbath. It seems that Yang Tian's strength is indeed very strong for you to value him so much. On the side, Wu Zhou laughed, then, I'll be the first to meet him later. His body released endless fighting spirit. Seeing this, the fighting 10 parties nodded, coldness flashing in his eyes. Since they didn't agree, then they had to die. What is the vast sky exquisite pagoda? Tianyang looked at Tianming and asked curiously. Hearing this, Tianming sighed. He really felt that Yang Tian was a savage from the mountains. He knew nothing about the vast sky sacred mountain and knew nothing about the second-level heavenly incantation. He didn't even know about the most famous second-level heavenly incantation, the vast sky exquisite pagoda. How did this guy get in? The vast sky exquisite pagoda is the most powerful treasure in the vast sky sacred hall. It's a semi-finished product of the pinnacle of a divine weapon. It's said that it's related to the highest secret of the entire vast sky sacred mountain, the 9th-level heavenly incantation. Every time the vast sky sacred mountain opens and the cloud fire path is held, there will definitely be people who want to obtain the vast sky exquisite pagoda. However, in history, the best is only to obtain the treasures within. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes lit up. The 9th-level heavenly incantation? The ultimate secret of the vast sky sacred mountain? Tianyang knew very well that the ultimate secret of the vast sky sacred mountain was the treasure left behind by the vast sky emperor. The vast sky exquisite pagoda was actually related to the ultimate secret of the vast sky sacred mountain. In that case, it was worth it to obtain it. We're almost there. At this moment, Tianming looked at the silhouette of the pagoda that was getting clearer and clearer. In his heart, he suddenly felt a sense of pride. Previously, when he came here, he was just a pitiful worm who couldn't even be considered a side character in the vast sky sacred mountain. Now, although he was still not the main character, he could get closer and take a look at the vast sky exquisite pagoda. Seems like he has some tricks up his sleeves. He actually reacted so quickly. At this moment, Tianyang seemed to have seen something. The corner of his mouth curled up as he chuckled. Hearing this, Tianming was stunned. In the next moment, Tianyang suddenly sped up. His terrifying speed exploded. In an instant, he arrived in front of the vast sky exquisite pagoda. At this moment, an incomparably huge fist suddenly appeared in front of Tianyang and violently blasted towards Tianyang. Yang Tian, right? Let me, the 5 states, fight you. Following a loud roar, a skinny figure appeared and waved his huge fist. The battle intent on his body actually burned into a substantial flame. 100 War Divine Fist. Yang Tian, die. At the same time, 3 angry roars were heard. 3 figures appeared around Tianyang in a flash. The purple lightning was like a raging dragon. The ancient word, suppress, was blazing. The origin of gold turned into a storm. The 3 major attacks exploded at the same time. Below. Jiang Xian's lips curled into a mysterious smile. Chapter 1527. Out of the 4 sky prides, 3 were close to becoming a half-god, and 1 was a half-god. The total amount of power they released was probably comparable to that of a demigod. After all, the 3 of them were not ordinary peak holy kings, but people on the true dragon roll. You chose not to take the path to heaven, but rather, you chose to barge into hell. Lin Fenghua's eyes were fierce as he slashed out with his sharp blade. Today will be the day you die. Jiang Haoshuan's face was cold as his eyes were filled with killing intent. He had used the strongest power of the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes right from the start. The purple lightning divine spear of the fighting 10 parties was not weak either. The 100 war divine fists of the 5 prefectures seemed to contain endless battle intent. Just one look was enough to ignite one's battle intent. Under the joint attack of the 4 sky prides, even the space around them was shattered. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. In the next moment, without hesitation, in his sea of soul, the heavenly sword released rays of Xinguang. Martial soul talent to devour the heavens. In an instant, the vast power that filled every corner of the vast heavens divine mountain, the boundless spiritual chi of heaven and earth, the sky, and even the vast heavens' exquisite pagoda all gushed into Tianyang's body. In Tianyang's hand, the great void sword embryo merged with the heavenly sword and appeared. At this moment, the peak heavenly grade great sage's cultivation rose to the peak half-holy king. This is my first time using the devouring secret skill. Tianyang smiled and said. Then, the great void sword embryo in his hand slashed out. Heavenly sword. His second martial soul talent was also Tianyang's strongest attack. Sword radiance filled everyone's vision. In an instant, an extremely powerful sword light swept out. Boom, 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 boom. The 4 sky prides of the cloud fire territory, the 4 invincible existences on the true dragon roll, were sent flying by Tianyang's attack. What? Seeing that, the fighting 10 parties were also shocked. He knew that Tianyang was very strong, but he didn't expect him to be so strong. As for Jiang Haoshuan and Lin Fenghua, their faces were filled with shock. When they had fought Tianyang had not been this strong. To be able to force me to use the heaven-devouring secret technique, you are quite impressive. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up as he chuckled. Hearing this, Jiang Haoshuan and Lin Fenghua's faces turned gloomy, while Wu Zhou spat out a mouthful of blood, but the battle intent in his eyes did not diminish. Ha ha! The fighting 10 parties really didn't trick me. You Yang Tian are really strong. Immediately afterward, Wu Zhou wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth, and his whole body was burning with fighting spirit as he rushed forward. 100 War Divine Fist. A giant fist instantly condensed and blasted toward Tianyang. Seeing that, Tianyang's expression did not change, and he swung his sword again. The sword chi swept across and directly broke the giant fist. The 5 prefectures, on the other hand, laughed loudly and did not seem to care at all as they charged forward once again. 100 War Divine Fist. Immediately after, another giant fist condensed and blasted toward Tianyang. Tianyang did the same thing, and a sword chi slashed out and shattered the fist. As for the 5 prefectures, they laughed loudly and charged forward. 100 War Divine Fist. 100 War Divine Fist. 100 War Divine Fist. The 5 prefectures continued to blast out giant fists, while the heavenly sun continued to slash out sword chi. However, as they talked, Tianyang realized that something was wrong. This guy only knew one move? Moreover, this guy's fists were getting stronger and stronger. In the next moment, Tianyang suddenly understood. There was a trace of surprise in his eyes, and he directly slashed out with his sword, sending Wu Zhou flying dozens of miles away. Then, a surprised voice was heard. 100 War Divine Body? This guy's fighting spirit would never decrease, and it kept getting stronger and stronger in the battle. In addition to the name of this move, it was the 100 War Divine Body. That's right. Wu Zhou spat out a mouthful of blood, and then said indifferently, "You're the first person to see through my constitution in a battle. You're strong. Really strong." Wu Zhou laughed, scratched his bald head, and then looked at Tianyang with burning fighting spirit. "So, let's have another fight." Hearing that, Tianyang was speechless. He was here to snatch the treasure, not to fight with this martial arts maniac. "You're not coming? You have to come even if you don't want to." Seeing that Tianyang did not say anything, Wu Zhou suddenly twitched the corner of his mouth, activated his body movement technique, and rushed forward. 100 War Divine Fist. Get lost. Tianyang's law of the divine Tao flew out and directly restrained Wu Zhou's body, and then looked to the side. At this moment, the three people at the side unleashed their killing moves that they had been preparing for a long time. Purple Lightning Spear Dragon. The purple lightning turned into a dragon that was a few miles long, and it fiercely attacked Tianyang. Jiang Family Secret Technique, Dark, Burial, Destruction. The ancient suppression heavenly eyes released rays of light, and a ray of light flew out. It was just a dot. However, it contained an endless amount of chaotic power. Lin Fenghua was even more direct. A blood-stained long sword shot out. Divine Blood-Bone Sword? Wu Zhou was shocked. This is a peak semi-divine artifact stained with divine blood, and you're using it against a semi-divine emperor? However, the three people did not reply. At this moment, they only had one thought in their minds. Kill Tianyang. At this moment, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. It was different from Li Qiongtian's heavenly fire sword formation. This time, the combined forces of the four great prodigies were definitely not to be underestimated. After all, they represented the strongest power of the younger generation in the entire Cloudfire territory. Break! Tianyang snorted coldly, and chaotic energy spread out and condensed on the great void sword embryo. Then, he slashed out with his sword. 7 great origins fused, 10,000 destruction. Boom! 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 Any one of the 7 great origins had the terrifying power to destroy the Tianshao Great World in the Xiantian Great World. Now, the 7 great origins had fused. Even if this was the divine realm, the vast heavenly mountain where the vast heavenly emperor's treasures were left behind, it was still enough to shatter space. An endless amount of destructive power burst out. A dazzling sword light stole everyone's sight. In the next second, even Lin Fenghua, the fighting 10 parties, and Jiang Haoxuan could no longer see a trace of the battle. Below, the expression of Jiang Xian, who had been wearing a smile of having everything under her control, froze. Her pretty face was filled with disbelief. Ancient suppression heavenly eyes? Pfft. At this moment, the 3 great prodigies spat out blood. The 3 overbearing and invincible attacks that were like a violent storm dissipated into nothingness at this moment. Tianyang stood proudly in the void with a long sword in his hand. Below, the fighting 10 parties, Lin Fenghua, Jiang Haoxuan, and the 5 prefectures who were still imprisoned were all trembling. What kind of terrifying power was this? Then, Tianyang casually glanced around. Whether it was the 4 great prodigies or the silent onlookers in the distance, they all lowered their proud heads. Chapter 1528. Do you have any objections? Tianyang's tone was very calm, and his words were not very imposing. It was as if he was a boy next door who was casually asking. However, with this casual sentence, Yi Zichen was stunned. No one dared to make a sound. Then I'll take it that you have no objections. Tianyang smiled warmly and then landed on the ground. Although the 3 supreme talents were injured, They did not dare to stand up even though they had the strength to do so. "You're not bad." When he passed by Wu Zhou, Tianyang nodded and smiled. With the 100 battles godly body and such a high status, it was rare for him to be able to maintain such a sincere fighting spirit. "Ha ha ha, thank you. Let's fight again when we're free." Wu Zhou laughed heartily, not caring about his previous defeat. For a battle maniac like Wu Zhou, losing was not important. He only wanted the process of the battle. Although it was said that this time, the 4 of them besieged him and he was the first to be defeated, the 5 prefectures did not care at all. He was already very excited to be able to fight with such a strong opponent like Tianyang. Anytime. Tianyang did not dislike Wu Zhou, who had the 100 battles godly body and was also a martial maniac. He smiled and said. Then, he passed by Wu Zhou and arrived in front of the vast sky exquisite pagoda. It was slightly different from what Tianyang had imagined. This vast sky exquisite pagoda was different from the other pagoda treasures that he had seen before. For example, its height. It was only a few dozen meters tall. It was not comparable to the pagoda that was tens of thousands of meters tall. Even in Tianyang's Vientiane Sky Market, the Heavenly Essence Pagoda that was given to Primordial Transformation Realm cultivators was more than 100 meters tall. However, Tianyang could still feel waves of vast power from the vast sky exquisite pagoda. It was not much different from the Cloud Fire Path Seeking Token. It was the vast power that belonged to the vast sky emperor. This is the vast sky exquisite pagoda that is related to the ultimate secret of the vast sky sacred mountain, the semi-finished product of a pinnacle divine weapon? Tianyang said. Hearing this, Tianming's eyes widened. Although Sir Yang Tian is very powerful, you should not underestimate the power of the Haoxiao exquisite pagoda. I've been to the vast sky temple more than 10 times, and I've seen the vast sky exquisite pagoda's power a few times. There was once a demigod who was more powerful than Lin Fenghua, the Fighting 10 Parties, and Jiang Haoxuan. He hid in the spatial treasure of an ordinary demigod emperor and tried to snatch the vast sky exquisite pagoda the moment he arrived. However, the vast heaven exquisite pagoda only activated once, and that demigod was instantly killed. In an instant, his body turned into ashes. Not even his divine soul was left. Tianming said solemnly. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change. He just smiled lightly. Of course I know. What a joke. A treasure left behind by the heaven's expanse monarch, even if it was a half-finished product, would not be weak. A mere demigod wanted to go against the emperor's power. What else could he do other than die? However, the moment he thought of this, all sorts of doubts surfaced in his mind. The vast sky Holy Spirit didn't know what treasure the heaven's expanse monarch had left behind in the Cloudfire territory. However, according to the memories that he had devoured, he had an impression that this treasure was extremely important. Obviously, it wasn't something that a half-finished product of a peak-grade divine weapon could compare to. However, there was only one treasure. Where did the other things come from? Then, it's good that Sir Yang Tian knows. Judging from Tianyang's tone, it didn't seem like he didn't take it to heart, nor did he seem to have taken it seriously. Tianming had no choice but to add the last sentence. After all, if Tianyang died, he wouldn't be able to escape the Great Sun Sect's revenge. Oh right. After persuading him, Tianming looked at an ordinary black stone tablet in front of the vast sky exquisite pagoda's door. This vast sky exquisite pagoda can't be snatched by force. You have to go through the exquisite tablet in front of the vast sky exquisite pagoda's door before you are qualified to fight for the vast sky exquisite pagoda. Exquisite tablet? Hearing that, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Then, he looked at the black stone tablet. The black stone tablet was the exact size of the vast sky exquisite pagoda. It was just slightly more than a meter tall. It was about the same height as Tianyang. This is the exquisite tablet? It's really small and exquisite. Tianyang walked closer and said, "Everyone who fights for the vast sky exquisite pagoda has to go through the exquisite tablets test. Only when they reach a certain standard, the vast sky exquisite pagoda will give them a corresponding test to choose the most suitable person to become the master of the vast sky exquisite pagoda." Tianming explained. The test method is to punch the Linglong monument. This exquisite tablet, I don't know what material it is made of. No matter what kind of attack, it will recover continuously. However, there was once a peerless genius in the Great Sun sect who stepped into the demigod realm at the age of 250. When he punched the exquisite tablet, he left a fist mark that was half a foot deep. Tianming said in shock. It was as if he had seen the peerless genius of the Great Sun sect with his own eyes. He had almost broken the exquisite tablet. Hearing that, Tianyang was also slightly shocked. This Linglong steel was only a foot thick. With a punch that was more than half a foot deep, it was as if he had punched through the entire Linglong monument. That peerless genius was the sect leader of the Great Sun sect 2 generations ago. He has now left the cloudy fire territory to travel the entire divine world. Tianming explained. Hearing that, Tianyang nodded slightly. The Great Sun sect was indeed the overlord of the cloudy fire territory. In the biggest secret realm of the cloudy fire territory, there were traces of the Great Sun sect everywhere. Then I'll give it a try too. Tianyang smiled. The peak half-holy emperor cultivation that he had just raised using the heaven-devouring secret skill exploded. Seeing that, Lin Fenghua suddenly snorted. Although your strength is not bad, the exquisite tablet is looking at the cultivation of the true origin. His cultivation is only at the heaven-grade great sage level. With some unknown secret skill, he stepped into the peak half-holy emperor level. No matter how you think about it, it's impossible for him to leave a mark on the exquisite tablet. Lin Fenghua said coldly. Hearing that, the fighting 10 parties, Jiang Haoxuan and the rest nodded slightly. It was obvious that they had also attacked the exquisite tablet just now. However, looking at the exquisite tablet now, it was as clean as new. It was obvious that there was nothing there. Tianyang ignored Lin Fenghua's mockery and secretly activated the 9-tempered dragon body. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. 9-tempered dragon body, body of the Dragon Emperor. King Kong body tempering sacred technique, level 3. Immortal divine body, indestructible body. The 3 body tempering sacred techniques were superimposed on Tianyang's body at the same time. Following that, Tianyang punched out. Boom! Before he even touched the Linglong monument, the entire space suddenly emitted a loud noise. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly realized that his immortal bloodline moved slightly. A bloodline force sprang forward at the speed of lightning and landed on the Linglong boulder before the punch could land. In the next moment, boom! The entire exquisite tablet was completely shattered. Before Tianyang and the rest could react, a ray of light from the exquisite tablet merged into the bloodline power. Then, it merged into Tianyang's body. Tianyang looked at the wind from his punch that landed in the air. Chapter 1529. Boom! This loud sound rang not only from the shattered exquisite monument, but also in the hearts of the fighting 10 parties, Lin Fenghua and Jiang Haoxuan. The 3 of them who were mocking him earlier were now in a daze as they stared at the debris on the ground in front of them. Something was wrong. Something must have gone wrong somewhere. Even the previous sect leader of the Great Sun sect, who was so dazzling that he defeated the prodigies of the Cloud Fire territory and the surrounding territories, could not break the exquisite monument. How could a great saint at the peak of the heavenly grade do that? Tianming, who was next to him, was also confused. Then, it turned into shock. He was only a half-saint emperor, so he could not see the sudden attack of the immortal bloodline hidden under Tianyang's mighty fist. He could only see that Tianyang punched and the exquisite monument exploded. It overturned everyone's understanding. Similarly, Tianyang was also in a state of confusion. If Tianyang had destroyed the exquisite monument with one punch, perhaps he would not be so confused. However, the undying bloodline had launched a surprise attack and destroyed the exquisite steel, causing his serious punch to miss. What was this? Tianyang also felt that the immortal bloodline had stolen a strange power from it and merged it into his body. However, time was limited. Tianyang did not have time to sense what it was. I broke it, and then what? Tianyang turned around and scratched his head. What should he do? Lin Fenghua, Jiang Haoxuan, and the Fighting 10 parties listened and wanted to beat someone up. The exquisite monument had been destroyed. Such an unheard of thing had happened. How would they know what to do? It was already bad enough that they did not capture Tianyang to study his structure. After those people punched, the Haoxiao Exquisite Pagoda automatically released a spatial power and brought those who passed the test into the Haoxiao Exquisite Pagoda. Take the test in the vast heaven Exquisite Pagoda, and then decide what you get based on the results of the test. However, the main body is still here. The Great Sun Sect's previous sect master, who was the best in the past, had only obtained a rank 9 spirit fire from it. Tianming said. Tianyang shrugged when he heard that. He released his space-time origin energy to carefully sense the changes in the surrounding space. Unfortunately, there was no change in space. The vast heaven exquisite pagoda was as dead as it did not react at all. Tianyang, you destroyed the Linglong monument, so you might have destroyed its control. Therefore, the vast heaven's exquisite pagoda is now wide open. Let's go in now. Just then, the voice of the heaven's expanse Saint Spirit rang out. Tianyang was stunned for a moment before his gaze sharpened. Could it be that the heaven's expanse Saint Spirit had discovered something while he was studying the vast sky divine mountain? The vast sky godly mountain was the place where the vast expanse monarch's power had been left behind. Here, the vast expanse Saint Spirit was the master of all. Therefore, Tianyang immediately flew into the vast heaven exquisite pagoda's door in a flash. No one can enter through the door. The door of the vast heaven exquisite pagoda is permanently sealed. Don't think that you can control it just because you destroyed the Linglong monument. Seeing that, Jiang Haoxuan could not help but shout out. However, Tianyang raised his hand and opened up a space door, and walked in. Jiang Haoxuan was left standing where he was. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but he could only swallow his words. Countless curses were running through his mind. At this moment, Tianyang had also walked through the space door and entered the vast heaven exquisite pagoda. However, Tianyang did not feel any resistance at all. It was as if Jiang Haoxuan's solemn shout about not being able to pass through the door was just a fart. Moreover, there's no test here. When Tianyang walked in, he didn't sense any powerful force setting up a test. The first level of the vast heaven exquisite pagoda was an empty hall. The door can't be passed through, which means that I can't enter the first level. Could it be that the test only begins on the second level? Tianyang thought for a while, then flew to the second level in a flash. However, the second level was no different from the first level. It was still empty and the hall looked the same. The only difference was that it was smaller than the first level. It was as if there was no powerful space array in the vast heaven exquisite pagoda to expand the space. The third level only begins? Tianyang raised his eyebrows, then activated his body movement technique and immediately arrived at the third level. However, there was still no difference. It was the same for the fourth and fifth levels. There were only 5 levels in the entire vast heaven exquisite pagoda. The aura of the divine weapon is still there, but it doesn't feel like it belongs to the vast heaven exquisite pagoda. It feels like someone else forcefully put the aura of the divine weapon into the vast heaven exquisite pagoda. Moreover, there isn't any test. If the test is triggered by the exquisite monument, it should at least be the treasures that those people obtained from here. Tianyang frowned. The vast heaven exquisite pagoda was completely different from what he had imagined. Even if he had destroyed the exquisite monument, which had never happened in the history of the Yun Huadao competition, it shouldn't have happened. After all, according to what Tianming, Lin Fenghua, and Jiang Haoxuan had described, the exquisite monument was only a method to determine the strength of the people who would enter the vast heaven exquisite pagoda. It shouldn't have much to do with the vast heaven exquisite pagoda. So that's the case. Seeing this, the vast expanse Holy Spirit muttered to himself, then came back to his senses and said to Tianyang, "If that's the case, then let the vast heaven exquisite pagoda recognize you as its master." Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. Recognize me as its master? What kind of secret does the vast heaven exquisite pagoda have? How can it recognize me as its master just like that? However, Tianyang also understood that the vast expanse Holy Spirit must have known something as well. He nodded and waved his right hand. A drop of blood flew out from the tip of his right hand. The Array Dao origin was activated and turned into an extremely mysterious blood rune. The entire vast heaven exquisite pagoda started to tremble slightly. In the next moment, Tianyang's eyes focused. Freeze. Immediately after, the blood runes suddenly entered the vast heaven exquisite pagoda. Instantly, Tianyang established a connection with the vast heaven exquisite pagoda without any hindrance. With just a thought, the vast heaven exquisite pagoda would move according to his thought. In other words, master recognition, success. It's a success just like that? Tianyang was in disbelief. So simple? He thought that some demigod existence would appear to stop him. Just like that, the semi-finished product of the pinnacle divine weapon fell into Tianyang's hands without any hindrance. Were all the people from before useless? There's movement on the first level? At this moment, Tianyang also felt that something was amiss. His eyes flashed and he came to the first level. A space door opened and exploded with an endless suction force. At this moment, the vast expanse Holy Spirit also spoke. Chapter 1530. What? Upon hearing that, Tianyang's expression changed. This space door was actually connected to the 9th level of Heavenly Seal of the vast Sky Divine Mountain. The 9th level of Heavenly Seal that the various sects of the Cloud Fire territory could not break through even when they joined forces? How could it appear before him so easily? That's right, the vast expanse Holy Spirit said, materializing beside Tianyang. Those who attacked the Linglong tablet and entered the vast sky exquisite pagoda to take the test and came out with the treasures did not enter the vast sky exquisite pagoda at all. This vast sky exquisite pagoda is indeed a semi-finished product of a peak-grade divine weapon. However, since it is a semi-finished product, how could it release such a strong divine weapon aura? How could the vast expanse Emperor put treasures in it? The vast expanse Holy Spirit said seriously, so, those people probably thought that they had entered the vast sky exquisite pagoda, but in reality, they went to the 9th level of Heavenly Seal? Tianyang subconsciously took it. Then, his expression changed abruptly. If that was the case, then everything made sense. Previously, the Great Sun sect had joined forces with many other powerful sects to break into the vast Sky Divine Mountain in an attempt to obtain the treasures in the deepest part of the vast Sky Divine Mountain. However, in the end, they stopped at the 8th level of Heavenly Seal, unable to break through the last level of Heavenly Seal. Therefore, no one knew what the 9th level of vast Sky Divine Mountain was like. It was not surprising that those who had entered the vast sky exquisite pagoda through the Linglong tablet would think that the 9th level of Heavenly Seal of the vast Sky Divine Mountain was the vast sky exquisite pagoda. However, why would a space door to the 9th level of Heavenly Seal appear out of nowhere in a semi-finished vast sky exquisite pagoda? Tianyang asked doubtfully. Hearing that, the vast expanse Holy Spirit said slowly, "What if someone is controlling it from behind?" Hearing that, Tianyang's expression changed. If that was the case, the vast sky divine mountain was not as simple as Tianyang had imagined. "I still have too little information, so I'm not sure myself. Therefore, I can't say anything to prevent it from affecting your own judgment. However, there is one thing that we can be sure of. The Heaven's Expanse Monarch's Legacy Seal will become the 9 heavenly restrictions that cover the entire vast sky divine mountain. There is also the Heaven's Expanse Holy Palace that appeared out of nowhere, but should not be here. There is definitely something wrong." The vast expanse Saint Spirit said. Hearing that, Tianyang nodded. "I've just finished analyzing the first 3 levels of the 9 heavenly forbidden ground. I've discovered that apart from the first level, there's basically nothing good. So, let's go now." Tianyang smiled and looked at the spatial gate in front of him. With a flip of his wrist, the vast heaven exquisite pagoda shrunk to the size of a grain of sand and landed on Tianyang's body. As for the spatial gate, it was still there. Outside, seeing this scene, everyone's eyes widened dumbfounded. The vast sky exquisite pagoda, which had never changed since the vast sky divine mountain appeared in the cloud fire territory, had actually disappeared? Moreover, what was that spatial gate? Could it be? The Fighting 10 party's eyes narrowed as they stared at Tianyang. He has already gotten hold of the vast sky exquisite pagoda? Hearing that, Jiang Haoxuan and Lin Fenghua's expressions changed drastically. "What?" At this moment, Tianyang's voice was heard. "The few of you, help me look after this half-holy king. If I come back and see that this half-holy king is missing a single strand of hair, or even dead, you can all imagine the consequences." Tianyang smiled, turned around, and stepped into the spatial gate. Outside, Tianming looked at Lin Fenghua and the others, who were also dumbfounded. Lin Fenghua and the others' faces were also twisted. Tianyang wanted them to protect a half-holy king ant? Moreover, he wanted them to take responsibility? Damn it! Jiang Haoxuan shouted in a low voice, but he still flew toward Tianming fearfully. He had no choice. If something happened to Tianming, judging from the terrifying power that Tianyang had displayed earlier, they would be finished. Therefore, even if they were unwilling, they could only agree to Tianyang's request. It was a request, not a request. Instantly, Tianming, an ordinary half-holy king from Luxiong City who did not have much talent in cultivation, accepted the protection of the 3 supreme talents from the Cloud Fire territory in fear and trepidation. Among them, Jiang Haoxuan had wanted to kill him many times. However, he gave up under Jiang Xian's warning gaze. To Jiang Xian, she still wanted to interact with Tianyang more. How could she let Jiang Haoxuan offend Tianyang so easily? After Tianyang passed through the space door, he sensed that the surrounding environment had changed tremendously compared to the first and second levels of the vast sky divine mountain. Tianyang frowned and a faint light flickered in his hand. It was the source of the sky-devouring secret skill that he had activated earlier. The heavenly sword had changed. Why is the heavenly sword reacting? Tianyang released his half-step to godly soul, but after a careful search, he still could not find anything. However, based on the heavenly sword's previous performance, Tianyang did not dare to let his guard down. After all, the heavenly sword had never failed to sense the demon chi. Only Tianyang did not detect it. The heavenly sword did not sense it wrongly. However, this is the peak of the vast sky divine mountain, the 9th level of the heavenly seal. It is also the place where the vast sky emperor's power is the most concentrated. How can there be demon chi? Tianyang raised his eyebrows, and there was a hint of seriousness in his eyes. There must be a reason for this abnormality. Tianyang did not think that there would be such a simple reason for all the abnormalities. I did not expect the demon chi to have already infiltrated this place. The vast sky Saint Spirit's tone was unprecedentedly serious as he spoke slowly. At this moment, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly, and in front of him, beams of bright light gathered. Following that, a tall, old man with an imposing aura appeared in front of Tianyang. Congratulations, you have finally broken the 9th level of the vast sky divine mountain and arrived here. The old man spoke slowly, and beams of powerful vast sky Saint Spirit's power surrounded his body. It was on a completely different level from Tianyang's and the vast sky Saint Spirit's power. It was the vast sky Saint Spirit's power that came from the vast sky Emperor. My name is the vast sky Emperor, and I am the creator of this vast sky divine mountain. The vast sky Emperor smiled and said, Since you have arrived here, it means that you have sufficient strength to pass my test. As you can see, the 9th level of the vast sky divine mountain has been invaded by beams of demon chi. With my current strength, it is not enough for me to remove all the demon chi. Therefore, please help me to remove the demon chi. If you can remove it to a certain extent, the strongest treasure of the vast sky divine mountain will belong to you. The vast sky Emperor said amiably. Hearing that, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and did not reply immediately. Instead, he called out to the vast sky Saint Spirit in his heart. Vast sky Saint Spirit, check it. The vast sky Saint Spirit was extremely shocked, and he muttered to himself. How can this be? How can the vast sky Emperor be here? Chapter 1531. This is how the Heaven Expanse Emperor looks like. Tianyang's pupils shrank when he heard that. He looked at the smiling Heaven Expanse Emperor in disbelief. He looked exactly like the Heaven Expanse Emperor. The Heaven Expanse Saint Spirit's memory would never be wrong. In other words, the figure in front of him really looked like the Heaven Expanse Emperor. However, only a fool would believe that. Even the Heaven Expanse Palace that the Heaven Expanse Emperor had spent his entire life to create was torn apart and scattered to the myriad world. How could the Heaven Expanse Emperor survive? Even if he did survive, he would not stay in the divine world's cloud-fire territory on a godforsaken vast sky godly mountain. Challenger, you can attack now. Even if it's not completely cleared, I won't mistreat you. The Heaven's Expanse Emperor said with a smile. Hearing this, Tianyang did not expose the Heaven's Expanse Emperor immediately. Instead, he played along. Then, how can I clear it? I've never seen demonic chi before. I'm afraid I won't be able to clear it out. Tianyang's expression changed immediately. He looked like he was shivering as he looked at the demonic chi around him that was becoming more and more obvious. He had heard that people in the divine world rarely saw demonic chi, and they were terrified when they saw it. How could Tianyang not use such a setting? The Heaven Expanse Emperor seemed to think that this reaction was normal. He nodded with a smile, and a ray of light appeared in his hand. Within it, there was an unusually vast and boundless power. This is the energy essence that I've gathered with all my might over the years. Because I'm only a spiritual body, I'm unable to use it. Therefore, I've been waiting for a challenger like you to come and clear the demonic chi for me. Once you absorb this energy essence, no matter what your cultivation base is, your cultivation base will be raised to the demigod realm in an instant. It's more than enough to deal with the demonic chi. The Heaven Expanse Emperor smiled. Tianyang's face froze when he heard that. How was he supposed to cooperate? Did he really think that he had never seen a spiritual body before? He was not sure if a spiritual body could fight. Moreover, the Heaven Expanse Emperor was at the Emperor realm. He was at the peak of the divine realm. Not to mention a spiritual body, even a drop of blood that flew out from a slash could have the battle prowess of a sage realm expert. Now that he had a spirit body, how could he not be able to deal with this bit of demonic chi? Tianyang forcibly suppressed the urge to open his mouth and expose this guy's bullsh *t. He pretended to be pleasantly surprised and in disbelief as he took the ball of energy essence. Tianyang's eyes flashed with surprise as soon as he took it. Although he did not know what was going on, the vast expanse energy really did belong to the vast expanse Emperor. If not for the fact that Tianyang's vast expanse Holy Spirit had already swallowed another vast expanse Holy Spirit, causing its memory and judgment to be greatly improved, Tianyang's vast expanse Holy Spirit would not have survived. Perhaps, without knowing what kind of person the heaven's expanse Emperor was, he might really be fooled by this person. You just need to refine it a little. In the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, you will have the power of a demigod. The heaven's expanse Emperor said kindly. Hearing that, Tianyang flipped his wrist and absorbed the heaven's expanse power into his body. In the next moment, the heavenly sword on the great void sword embryo in his hand suddenly withdrew. In an instant it pierced through the vast expanse energy. As expected, under the cover of the powerful and vast expanse energy outside. At the core of the vast expanse energy was a ball of demonic chi. If he refined it rashly, he might really have the power of a demigod for a period of time. However, he would also be eroded by the demonic chi after his power was exhausted. Although he did not know why the people who came here before came out as if nothing had happened. However, Tianyang would not easily absorb the demonic chi into his body. Swallow! With a thought, Tianyang's heavenly sword erupted with an extremely strong devouring power. After swallowing the demonic chi, the vast expanse energy was directly absorbed by Tianyang. In an instant Tianyang's aura skyrocketed. In the blink of an eye, he broke through the barrier of a saint emperor. Streams of divine Tao law gathered around Tianyang's body. In the next moment, he stepped into the demigod realm. Not bad. It seems like my power is extremely compatible with yours. Seeing this, the vast expanse emperor revealed an extremely satisfied smile. Well then, challenger, let's begin. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded his head slightly. In his eyes, a strange light flashed. Before Tianyang stepped into the demigod realm, he would not have many chances to experience the power of a demigod. The godly realm can change the heavens and earth. Although the demigod realm has not stepped into the godly realm, it is close. Tianyang smiled and muttered to himself. In the next moment, the heavenly sword was attached to the great void sword embryo. On the great void sword embryo, there were streams of 9-colored xinguang. In the next moment, a devouring power erupted. The surrounding demonic chi turned into a black stream of air and surged into Tianyang's body. As for the heaven's expanse monarch, a slight distortion appeared on it at this moment. The devouring power of the needle towards the demonic chi was also used on the vast expanse emperor's body. What? Seeing this, the vast expanse emperor's face revealed a look of shock. As for Tianyang, he turned his gaze and looked at the vast expanse emperor. This is so strange. Why would the treasure passed down by my ancestors to deal with demonic chi be used on you, Emperor? Tianyang turned his head, the corners of his mouth curling into a faint smile. Hearing this, the vast expanse emperor's face revealed a look of panic for a moment. In the next second, he returned to normal. Perhaps the demigod power you just obtained is hard to control, so it accidentally affected you. The vast expanse emperor smiled. At this moment, Tianyang's eyes narrowed. In the next moment, the divine wilderness heaven spirit art was activated. The demigod realm's true yuan was released. The vast power was all integrated into Tianyang's vast expanse origin. Therefore, if Tianyang wanted to attack, naturally, the attack that contained the vast expanse origin was the strongest. 10,000 mammoth annihilation. Tianyang roared angrily and slashed out with his sword. This slash was not aimed at the demonic chi. Instead, it was aimed at the vast expanse emperor. What are you doing? The vast expanse emperor's face changed drastically. He roared angrily, "What are you doing?" However, Tianyang's sword did not slow down at all. Instead, it sped up and charged towards the vast expanse Emperor. Damn it! The vast expanse Emperor's face revealed a hint of viciousness. In the next moment, he threw out a punch. Boom! The sword light of the 10,000 mammoths' annihilation was shattered by the punch. However, the outer shell of the heaven's expanse monarch was shattered as well. What was revealed was the demonic chi that surrounded the demonic chi, like a demonic god, a little girl. Vast expanse Holy Spirit, come out and explain. Tianyang was stunned. Then, he shouted angrily in his heart. The vast expanse Holy Spirit immediately regained his senses. He looked at the little girl with white hair and red eyes, who was surrounded by demonic chi. This guy is not the mastermind. Chapter 1532. White hair, red eyes, floating in midair. Her face was as delicate and cute as the vast expanse Holy Spirit that Tianyang had seen in the Vientiane sky market. However, the demonic chi that surrounded her body made her cute look a little scary. This fellow is the vast expanse Holy Spirit from the vast expanse Holy Palace that did not have an artifact spirit. The vast expanse Holy Spirit said seriously. At this moment, she also noticed that the demonic chi around her was getting stronger. The demonic chi earlier was only released by the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit to lure the challengers to refine the vast expanse power that contained the demonic chi origin. The previous few were too weak. Even if they were temporary shells, they were useless. Only you are passable. The white-haired, red-eyed heaven's expanse Saint Spirit smirked. Furthermore, those people are just too stupid. Let alone directly attacking the heaven's expanse emperor like you did, they didn't even have the slightest bit of suspicion towards this sudden power. Hearing that, Tianyang was slightly shocked. It turned out that those people had really entered the 9th heavenly seal of the vast expanse holy mountain. Moreover, they had also seen the vast expanse emperor that the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had turned into. However, they were too weak. Hence, they were rejected by the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit and were sent away with a random treasure. However, I still left a demonic chi seed in their bodies. If there is still no suitable person after 5,000 years, I don't mind using their bodies to get out. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit licked her lips and chuckled. In the next moment, a streak of blood light suddenly shot towards him. Tianyang instinctively tilted his head and dodged the attack by a hair's breadth. A few strands of hair flew in the air and were easily cut off by the blood light. Streaks of demonic chi even spread up the few strands of hair that were cut off, trying to invade Tianyang's brain. However, Tianyang released the devouring power of the sky cloud sword in time and swallowed the demonic chi. Your reaction speed is not bad. I'm getting more and more satisfied with you. Seeing that, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit chuckled and her body flashed. Her petite body carried with it the demonic chi that was like a wild wind as she charged towards him. This guy must have used some unknown method to come to the vast firmament's sacred mountain. At this moment, the vast expanse Holy Spirit's voice rang out. Then, through the connection between the Heaven's Expanse Temple and the Heaven's Expanse Emperor, I directly entered the depths of the seal on the treasure that the Heaven's Expanse Emperor left behind. Merely, the seal not only requires the boundless power, but it also requires humans. Therefore, this vast expanse sacred spirit can only enter, but not leave. It can only leave through possession. The Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit said hurriedly, once it succeeds, it will have the right to obtain the Heaven's Expanse Temple and the Heaven's Expanse Monarch's treasures. Therefore, we must guard against soul attacks. Devil soul devour. At that moment, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit let out a furious roar, and a powerful divine soul ripple burst forth. Streams of demonic chi, like thousands of ghosts from the underworld, crashed into Tianyang's soul sea in an instant. Within Tianyang's soul sea, the tiny figure constructed from divine Tao laws suddenly opened its eyes and erupted with the strength of a powerful half-step divine soul to resist the millions of nether ghosts. Half-step divine soul? Not bad, not bad. You're much stronger than everyone before. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit licked its lips, and a ray of light flashed in its blood-red eyes. Its body flashed, and it appeared in front of Tianyang. Heaven's expanse Emperor Killing Fist. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit attacked decisively. Although its body was small, the strength of this punch was not any weaker than Tianyang's swordsmanship. After all, this was the fragment of the Heaven's Expanse Temple that the Heaven's Expanse Emperor had poured his heart and soul into refining. Boom! The punch landed on the body of the Great Void Sword Embryo. The power of this punch was unusually strong. Even if Lin Fenghua of the 5 states, Jiang Haoshuan of the Fighting 10 parties, who had attacked Tianyang together, they would only be killed instantly. Perhaps even Tianyang, who had used the heaven-devouring secret skill to raise his cultivation to the peak of the half-step Holy Emperor level, might not be able to withstand it. However, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had given Tianyang the gift of a demigod. The power of a demigod. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's blood-red eyes narrowed, and a look of understanding flashed in its eyes. So that's how it is. From the very beginning, you realized that there was something wrong with the vast expanse power that I gave you. Furthermore, you used your ancestral secret skill to devour my demonic chi in advance. Although the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had been invaded by the demonic chi, its intellect was not reduced by much. Furthermore, there must be someone of my kind beside you. That's why you could condense the vast expanse origin and use it to perfectly use the demigod power that I gave you. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit licked its lips, and a murderous look flashed in its eyes. When I just regained my consciousness, I was already on the vast expanse Holy Mountain. I've never seen the other fragments of the Heaven's Expanse Temple. However, my instincts told me that if I devoured the other fragments of the vast expanse Holy Spirit, my combat power would definitely skyrocket. You brat, you really gave me a big gift. After the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit finished speaking, its body suddenly disappeared. The demonic chi stirred up gusts of wild wind, and the white-haired, red-eyed figure kept flashing in and out of it. Demons suppressing heaven and earth. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit roared, and a terrifying suppressive force pressed down on Tianyang. Seeing that, Tianyang smiled. Then, this is a big gift. Whether you can take it or not is still a question. After that, streaks of mysterious and powerful destructive force exploded from Tianyang's body. It came from Jiang Haoshuan's ancient suppressing heavenly eyes, the combination of suppression and killing. Today I shall name it, the ancient suppressing sword. Tianyang smiled and slashed out with his sword. Two incomparably powerful forces collided together. Seeing that, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit gritted its teeth, and a ray of light flashed in its eyes, and its white hair flew. So what if you have the vast expanse origin, and can use this demigod power like it's your own arm? I've waited for so long in the vast expanse Holy Mountain. I won't lose to someone as weak as you. The vast expanse Holy Spirit roared, and the demonic chi gathered in its hands, turning into a huge long spear. The long spear was dozens of meters long, and it didn't match the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's body that was only 1.34 meters tall. However, once it held the huge spear, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's aura skyrocketed. Do you know why there's nothing in the vast expanse Holy Palace? Even something as important as the vast expanse divine order has no power? The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit smirked. Because they have turned into this spear. Its aura skyrocketed. In the blink of an eye, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Chapter 1533. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had no way of using the vast expanse Emperor's power. Hence, the vast expanse Holy Spirit's power was useless to her, and could only be used as bait to lure other challengers into the abyss. However, the vast expanse Holy Spirit could not damage the vast expanse temple at all. Even a drop of water or a drop of power could only be used and could not be damaged. Hence, although Tianyang's vast expanse Holy Spirit had the cultivation of a half-holy emperor, its combat power was basically zero. As for the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit, it was because it had completely absorbed and refined the vast expanse temple. In terms of power, it was far more powerful than Tianyang's vast expanse Holy Spirit. Peak demigod. How's this move of mine compared to the one on your body that has been silent all this while? A hint of provocation flashed in its blood-red eyes as it said. The long spear in its hand also shot out streaks of black demonic lightning. It looked extremely terrifying. The vast expanse temple is the foundation of the vast expanse Holy Spirit. Using the vast expanse temple as the price to become stronger will only make you lose more than you gain. The vast expanse Holy Spirit finally materialized and said coldly as it looked at the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. What a joke! Of course I know this. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit laughed coldly, and the huge spear in its hand disappeared instantly. In the next moment, it appeared in front of Tianyang. The one who is bound by the so-called original body is the stupidest one. Boom! The huge spear suddenly exploded, and countless demonic lightning bolts shot towards Tianyang. Tianyang's expression was calm, and the great void sword embryo in his hand suddenly slashed out. Ancient suppression sword. Although Tianyang had just created this move, it already had the power of an ordinary 10,000 mammoth annihilation. As the sword slashed out, the killing power exploded crazily. It collided with the demonic lightning bolts. Hee. At this moment, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's lips curled into a cold smile. In the next moment, its body suddenly disappeared. The first one to die will not be your good body. Instead, it's this fellow with a foul mouth of his. Her white hair fluttered in the wind. Although she was petite, her fist was filled with boundless killing intent as she fiercely punched out. At this moment, the berserk vast expanse Saint Spirit was like a raging tide as it slammed viciously against the vast expanse Saint Spirit. You want to fight with me? The heavens expanse Saint Spirit's face froze for a moment before he snorted coldly. Behind him, a huge palace appeared. After that, a similarly small and delicate fist collided violently with the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's fist. Boom! However, what surprised the demonized Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit was that his punch did not destroy the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit as easily as crushing dry weeds. On the other hand, he had almost been devoured by the power of the Heaven's Expanse Temple. You've already devoured an entire Heaven's Expanse Temple? The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's eyes revealed a look of astonishment. Then, it turned into a cold sneer. No wonder you can devour me instead. However, that's all you've got. The Heaven's Expanse Temple can at most make you invincible, but you're dreaming if you want to defeat me. After that, the demonic chi spear appeared in her hands once again. If I can't deal with you, then I'll deal with this guy first. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit smiled faintly. Demonic chi exploded and blasted violently towards Tianyang. Die. At that moment, Tianyang's figure disappeared from the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's sight. After that, a strong force of freezing time was applied on the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Space-time origin. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had just managed to shout out this sentence when he was frozen in time by the frozen space-time. Space-time instant. Tianyang stepped on the Heaven's Expanse 9 changes. In a flash, he appeared behind the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Without mercy, he slashed down with his sword. Although the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit looked extremely similar to the heavens expanse Holy Spirit. However, since he was an enemy, Tianyang would not show him any mercy. 10,000 Mammoth Annihilation. The terrifying sword that contained the 7 origins, which seemed to be able to shatter the 9th heavenly seal, slashed down violently. The frozen spacetime did not last for long. Now it had disappeared. However, the sword light had already landed squarely on the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's body. Damn it! The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's body was slammed into the ground by the sword light, creating a deep crater in the ground. However, there was no blood. The light on his body flickered, and he was weakened significantly. Obviously, even if he was a weapon spirit, he was not invincible. Crawling out from the deep crater, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's face was filled with unwillingness. Break! The demonic chi danced wildly as he threw out his spear. An extremely terrifying attack, which directly shattered a part of the space, went straight towards Tianyang's sword light. The demigod peak demonic chi exploded at that moment. In the next moment it covered Tianyang's sword light. Then it suppressed it. It was a terrifying suppression from all directions, without any blind spots. Tianyang's demigod power came from external sources. Although it had been integrated into the vast expanse Holy Spirit's origins, it would be exhausted eventually. In terms of thickness, it could not be compared to the demigod peak demigod demonic chi of the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Therefore, in this head-on battle, Tianyang was at a disadvantage almost instantly. However, Tianyang's eyes shone brightly. 2 balls of black flames that were similar in appearance but completely different in nature surged out. Undying divine fire, true flames of destruction. 2 black flames, like a river, swept towards the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's spear from both sides. At the same time, Tianyang activated the vast expanse 9 changes and rushed out. In a flash, he appeared in front of the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Heavenly Sword. Tianyang would not give the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit any time to react. With a low roar, the chaotic chi and martial soul's power exploded at the same time, turning into an extremely powerful sword light that shot towards the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Vast expanse 9 changes. Do you think I don't have it? The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit roared. Demonic chi swept out from his hands and enveloped the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Then, his body collided with Tianyang's sword. Boom, boom, boom. Demonic chi and true origin clashed, causing ripples that spanned tens of thousands of feet. Even the 9th heaven seal that had stopped countless people started to tremble. The battle between the two almost shattered the entire peak of the vast expanse Holy Mountain. At the side, although the vast expanse Holy Spirit wanted to attack, he could only stand where he was, even with the vast expanse Holy Palace's main body helping him. The power of a half-holy emperor was still not enough in the divine realm. You only reach the demigod realm with my power, and you want to fight me? The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit laughed out loud. In the next moment, divine Tao laws gathered in his hands. Spatial law, imprisonment. Sorry, I have divine Tao laws too. Tianyang smiled lightly. Half-step to godly spirit exploded. Directly, it suppressed the divine Tao laws that the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit released. Taking advantage of the opportunity, he pressed his palm against the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's forehead. The heavenly sword shone brightly. Countless demonic chi currents flowed into Tianyang's body. Chapter 1534. Devour by Force. Tianyang's move was extremely domineering. After all, the heavenly sword's devouring was only done after he had won the battle or gained the upper hand in the battle so that the heavenly sword could evolve. Now, the battle between Tianyang and the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit was still uncertain, but Tianyang had already started devouring by force. This was an extremely risky move because he could be resisted at any time and be devoured by his martial soul. However, the facts proved that, along with the risk, there was a huge reward. When Divine Tao Law clashed against Divine Tao Law, Tianyang's attack came first, and the impact was negligible. As for the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit, it did not expect Tianyang, who was not even a saint emperor, to possess Divine Tao Law. It froze for a moment, and Tianyang grasped the opportunity perfectly. The heavenly sword started devouring. In just a moment, Tianyang had devoured a huge amount of demonic qi from the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's body. Most of it became the nourishment for the heavenly sword, while a small portion was used to push Tianyang's cultivation up. Even the vast expanse Holy Spirit's power, which had an absolute barrier to Tianyang, was devoured by the demonic qi. A part of it was integrated into Tianyang's vast expanse origin. Get lost! At this moment, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had finally recovered. With a roar, he unleashed streams of demonic qi. Streams of ferocious black qi seemed to have materialized and blasted towards Tianyang. Tianyang knew when to stop. He immediately retreated and used all his strength to refine the streams of demonic qi that he had just devoured. It was completely different from the heaven-devouring demon god's soul fragments in the Xiantian Great World. The heaven-devouring demon god might have been powerful enough to destroy the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. However, it was also in its original state. Only a soul fragment was left, and its demonic qi had almost dissipated. Even so, the heavenly sword was still filled with energy. Now, the quantity and quality of the demonic qi from the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit was much stronger than the demigod's soul fragment. Now it was devouring. The heavenly sword was on the verge of a breakthrough. Not bad, not bad. Tianyang's expression changed as he looked at the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Just a small portion of it was already so powerful. In that case, if he swallowed them all, wouldn't it mean that the heavenly sword could step into the divine realm? Instantly, Tianyang's gaze became extremely fervent. How dare you do such a thing to me? Die! The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit was disgusted by Tianyang's stare. Gritting his teeth, he gripped the spear in his hand tightly and charged out with a roar. However, before he could even take a few steps, the long spear that was tens of meters long suddenly disintegrated. By the time the vast expanse Saint Spirit reacted to it, it had already disintegrated into countless pieces, and there were only tens of meters left. You, what are you doing? Seeing this, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's expression changed drastically as he exclaimed in disbelief. It took her 1,000 years to refine this demonic qi spear, which was tens of meters long. How long had it been since the battle with the Tianyang? Soon, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit realized that something was amiss. The demonic qi on her body was much weaker than before. The demonic qi of a peak demigod was now swallowed by Tianyang to the point that she could not even maintain her demigod state. What did you do? It was still all right that the long spear was broken. After all, it could be refined again. As long as she could defeat Tianyang, she could use Tianyang's body to leave vast expanse Holy Mountain. There were treasures that were even more powerful than this demonic qi spear. However, the demonic qi had disappeared. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had no way to replenish it anymore. Die! The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit collapsed. With a roar, he charged forward again with the long spear in his hand. 8 Desolation Current-Breaking Spear. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit roared angrily, and the demigod demonic qi was released. A sharp and powerful spear light shot out and went straight for Tianyang. However, this time, Tianyang was much easier to deal with compared to before. Chaotic Qi was infused, the divine wilderness heaven spirit art was activated, and the ancient sword was slashed out. The spear light was shattered by Tianyang. What? Seeing this, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's pupils shrank. Her petite face was filled with disbelief. Even if a portion of the demonic Qi had been devoured, it should not have been weakened to this extent. In the next moment, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit sensed a possibility. Her expression changed drastically, and she closed her eyes to sense carefully. Immediately after, her pretty face became incomparably ugly. My demonic Qi origin. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's expression crumbled instantly. She raised her hand and looked at the demonic Qi that seemed to have weakened significantly. The speed at which it was gathering had slowed down immensely. How could Tianyang let go of this opportunity? He attacked instantly. The vast expanse 9 changes exploded. In an instant, it suffered from an extremely strong reaction force, and accelerated to an extremely terrifying speed. Even the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit, who only had the demigod power left, could not react in time. Tianyang placed his palm on the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's head again. Streams of devouring force burst out. Boom, 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 boom. The demonic Qi storm that was swirling around them paused for a moment, and then became even more violent. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's eyes widened. Then, she roared furiously and swallowed all the demonic Qi around her into her body. How dare you! There was even a moment when the sky cloud sword's devouring power could not catch up with the speed at which the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit was absorbing the demonic Qi around her. However, as if it had seen the hope of evolving, the sky cloud sword trembled slightly, and the Tsang Emperor sword fragment hidden deep within it suddenly shone brightly. The devouring power surged once again. Instantly, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's power fell from demigod to peak Holy Emperor. In a short while, it fell from peak Holy Emperor to half Holy Emperor. Previously, when Tianyang had devoured its demonic Qi origin for the first time, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit could not even react in time. This caused it to be at a disadvantage in a direct confrontation with Tianyang. Now, it was being devoured by Tianyang without hesitation. Its power fell faster than a rocket. In just a few seconds, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit could not resist at all. Vast expanse Holy Spirit, go! When the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's cultivation fell back to heavenly grade Great Saint, Tianyang shouted. This was the second vast expanse Holy Palace fragment. However, just as the vast expanse Holy Spirit was about to make a move, his expression changed. No, the demonic Qi on this fellow is still too thick. I can't devour it. Ha ha, I've said it before. My power source is demonic Qi. As long as there's a trace of power left, even if I let you devour it, you won't be able to devour it. Seeing this, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit laughed loudly. Hearing this, Tianyang frowned and swallowed directly. He devoured the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit until it was a spiritual grade Great Saint, and then threw it into the Vientiane sky market. Waf. Chapter 1535. After throwing the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit into the Vientiane sky market, Tianyang went straight to the depths of the 9th heavenly seal of the vast sky divine mountain. Although the vast sky divine mountain was so huge, the 9th heavenly seal should not be small. However, to Tianyang's surprise, the 9th heavenly seal of the vast sky divine mountain was so small that even Tianyang was surprised. He did not even need to use the vast expanse 9 transformations. He only needed to walk around casually, and in a few minutes, he arrived at the border of the 9th heavenly seal. It was as if what he saw in the 1st and 2nd heavenly seals was not the 9th heavenly seal at all. Could it be that the vast sky divine mountain does not have the ninth heavenly seal? Is that why the patriarchs could not break the ninth heavenly seal and enter this place? According to what the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit said, the only people who could enter the ninth heavenly seal were those who passed the Linglong tablet and thought that they had entered the vast sky Linglong pagoda, but in reality, they had entered the ninth heavenly seal of the vast sky divine mountain. That made sense. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had accumulated power for 1,000 years, but in the end it was only a peak demigod. Although the Cloudfire realm was not famous in the divine world, it was still one of the strongest realms in the divine world. It might not be as powerful as the vast expanse emperor, but it was definitely not weak. If the ninth heavenly seal was created by the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit, it would be impossible to break it. Therefore, the ninth heavenly seal of the vast sky divine mountain was probably not in the same space as the vast sky divine mountain. Those patriarchs tried their best to break through the air, but they could not do anything. Vast expanse Holy Spirit, can you sense the location of the vast expanse Emperor's treasure? He released his primordial spirit power, but it did not work. Other than the 100 meters around him that he could clearly sense, the entire area was filled with strong and terrifying vast expanse power. Even if Tianyang wanted to find it, he could not find it. It is right in the middle of this place. Vast expanse Holy Spirit said. Hearing that, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and nodded. In a flash, he came to the center of the ninth heavenly seal of the vast sky divine mountain. The next moment, the vast expanse origin was released. A sliver of the heavens expanse Emperor's expanse power, which he had obtained from the cloud fire path token, flew out from Tianyang's hand. It poured into the earth. Suddenly, boom! A series of blasts took place, as if the entire vast firmament's sacred mountain was about to be torn apart. Following it, wisps of powerful god force burst out of the ground. Following it, a terrifying beam of light soared into the sky. Tianyang's face suddenly turned cold. He took a few steps back and looked at the beam of light that was about to pierce through Haoxiao Divine Mountain and pierce through the sky. This was the Emperor's power that the Heaven's Expanse monarch had left behind in this place. Similarly, it was also the reason why Tianyang had rushed over from the Enigma Fire dynasty. "This is the real Heaven's Expanse," Emperor Tianyang exclaimed as he sensed the aura within the light pillar. Previously, the demonized Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit's disguise was extremely realistic. If he did not have the Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit with him and knew about the Heaven's Expanse Emperor's current state, he might have fallen for the demonized Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit's trick. However, now that he had sensed the real Emperor's power, Tianyang felt that the Heaven's Expanse Emperor that the demonized Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit had disguised as was riddled with holes. There were flaws everywhere. Previously, the Sky Tyrant Dragon God told you that the godly realm is also known as the Emperor realm. That's just a saying now. The Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit's solemn voice suddenly rang out. She revealed her body and looked at the huge beam of light in front of her. Her expression was faintly discernible. In the era before the Heaven's Expanse shrine was torn apart, Emperor is the king of the godly realm. It's a title that only people can use. The Heaven's Expanse Emperor is the pinnacle of the godly realm. The Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit said. After coming into contact with the real power of the Heaven's Expanse Emperor, she seemed to have recovered a lot of her memories. However, she was still a distance away from truly reminiscing about it. After all, the real weapon spirit of the Heaven's Expanse Shrine had already disappeared when the Heaven's Expanse Shrine was torn apart and the fragments flew out into the universe. Now, although she was a part of the weapon spirit of the Heaven's Expanse Shrine, she was also a new body. Therefore, even in the face of the Heaven's Expanse Emperor's power, it was difficult for her emotions to fluctuate too much. Is that so? As expected, the title of Emperor can't be used casually. Tianyang did not notice the change in the heavens expanse Holy Spirit's emotions. He smiled faintly and looked at the beam of light that was gradually calming down. The heavens expanse Emperor did not leave behind any divine consciousness or voice transmission for his descendant. Perhaps the heavens expanse Emperor at that time was far from knowing that he would be facing such a huge calamity. Thinking of this, Tianyang's heart suddenly moved. Then, he smiled in relief. The speed at which the beam of light was dissipating was getting faster and faster, revealing the treasure that was wrapped in it. A small sword. Tianyang raised his eyebrows. However, he was not surprised. He took a step forward. He reached out his right hand and grabbed the small sword. His lips curled up as he smiled. Senior Heaven's Expanse Emperor, since I've owed you so much, then I'll help you bear your karma. The Heaven's Expanse Shrine, and any enemies that might exist, I'll fulfill them one by one. Tianyang's voice was not loud, but it spread out leisurely. As for the small sword that was still separated from Tianyang, after hearing this, it also calmed down. It turned into a ray of light and merged into Tianyang's body. Tianyang's expression did not change. He smiled faintly and retracted his hand. In his eyes, there were streaks of dark yellow clouds floating and flowing. The demigod expanse energy that he had swallowed and refined from the demonized heavens expanse Holy Spirit dissipated at this moment. However, there were many that had completely merged into Tianyang's expanse origin. Seeing this, the heavens expanse Holy Spirit smiled faintly and looked at Tianyang, who was standing in the light. Around him, the 7 origins gathered. Legacy sword body? Tianyang muttered to himself as he sensed the enormous torrent of information that surged into his mind. The treasure that the Heavens Expanse Emperor had left behind here was not a weapon or armor. It was a body tempering technique. When the stars are dust, I can leave dust behind. Legacy sword body. Comprehending the information that came from the legacy sword body, Tianyang also kept the Great Void sword embryo in his hand. The heavenly sword appeared and floated in front of Tianyang. Streaks of undying divine fire also burned. In the Sea of Soul, the tiny person that was formed by the divine Tao law also appeared above Tianyang's head. Chaos, birth and death, expanse, sword principle, spacetime, formation principle, pill principle. Now, after the undying divine fire appeared, the tiny primordial spirit followed closely behind. A pure-colored ball of true yuan also followed behind. Undying, primordial spirit, true yuan. The heavenly sword released streaks of 9-colored xinguang, stirring up the 9 heavens and earth. Just nice, the 10 origins. Chapter 1536. 10 origins, Tao proving holy emperor. This was Tianyang's ambition. Relying on the myriad forms Tao and the origin of chaos, when Tianyang stepped into the saint realm, he was already in the 9 sacred paths. Why couldn't he enter the holy emperor realm with 10 origins? The myriad forms Tao was all-encompassing, and there were countless people who had entered the holy realm with more than one sacred path. Although the heavenly sun was a little too powerful in this regard, it was still within the normal range. However, it was different with 10 origins. The holy emperor realm, whether in the Xiantian Great World or the Divine World, was recognized as one origin and one holy emperor. Even the mysterious Xiantian Great World and Void Mountain, which knew many secrets of the Divine World, was the same. The only difference was the strength of the origin. Saint Emperor Lai Yan's origin of fire was relatively ordinary, and his understanding of the origin of fire was not very deep. Therefore, when facing the Dragon Emperor's darkness origin, even though the Dragon Emperor was much younger than Saint Emperor Lai Yan, Saint Emperor Lai Yan was very wary of the Dragon Emperor. However, there was a limit to how strong an origin was. With more origins, it was not 1 plus many equals many. This limit would increase exponentially. Even one's own strength would increase exponentially. Tianyang was a peak heavenly great saint. Even if he had the immortal bloodline, the divine desolate sky spiritual art, the great void sword embryo, the sky cloud sword, and other powerful treasures, he should not have been able to kill a half-holy emperor so easily. After the holy emperor raised his cultivation to the peak of the half-holy emperor realm, he could even defeat the 4 great prodigies of the cloud fire territory, who were even stronger than a true demigod. However, he had done it, because each of his 7 origins could give him at least 1 holy emperor's power. 7 added together was not 1 multiplied by 7, but the limit of countless sevens. After becoming a holy emperor with 10 origins, Tianyang might be able to do it. He might even be able to fight the immortal prince's divine power clone, who had swept across the entire Xiantian great world and defeated the dragon emperor. When did this guy condense the 10 great essences? Seeing this, the heavens expanse Saint Spirit revealed a look of astonishment. She had always known that Tianyang had been suppressing his cultivation so that it would be easier for him to step into the Saint Emperor realm. He also knew that Tianyang had done all kinds of things to become stronger. However, he had never imagined that it was for the sake of condensing the 10 great essences. 9 is the limit, but what would happen if this limit was broken? Tianyang chuckled as his eyes sparkled. The 10 essences emitted dazzling light at the same time. The 9-colored Xinguang of the heavenly sword had also reached its peak. Skycloud sword evolve. The sage emperor had broken through. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth swirled around Tianyang's body like a hurricane. The power of the vast expanse emperor that had dissipated earlier was also summoned by Tianyang's vast expanse origin, merging into Tianyang's vast expanse origin. Boundless heaven and earth spiritual chi surged into Tianyang's body, and the 10 great origin sources emitted different kinds of light. Among the 10 great origins, the alchemy Tao and array Tao origins emitted the weakest light. After all, they were researched by Tianyang himself in the 3 years before his death. Although they had also achieved the origins, they belonged to the ordinary level of the origins, flickering with ordinary silver light. As for the essence spirit and quintessential essence, the 2 great origins, although their radiance was not too strong and was only slightly brighter than the origins of Pill Tao and Formation Tao. However, the strange and powerful divine Tao laws in the depths of the tiny soul and the dense energy within the true Yuan quintessence were telling him that these 2 quintessences were extraordinary. After all, one was a half-step divine soul that had condensed the divine Tao laws. They were only a single step away from leaping over the level of source and directly becoming an existence of laws. One was a solid foundation of true essence that Tianyang had tempered countless times, accumulated for countless years, strengthened, suppressed, strengthened, and suppressed again. In truth, there weren't many people who cultivated true essence. It was different from a saint who had to cultivate true essence to the divine Tao. In the saint's sovereign realm, what was most important was complete control over the power of the world. The strength of true essence was not insignificant, but it was also not very important. In the God realm, there were even people whose true essence lingered on the edge of the origin. Above the essence spirit and true essence that seemed weak but was actually incomparably powerful were the life and death origins, the spacetime origins, and the undying origins. Unlike the alchemy Tao origins and array Tao origins, which were pure balls of light, these 3 origins each had their own form. The spacetime origin was a ball of light that twisted and intertwined with silver light. It had no fixed form or even fixed form, symbolizing the ever-changing spacetime. The life and death origin was formed from black and white. It was a vortex that constantly spun, the cycle of life and death never ending. The undying origin was even simpler. It was a ball of undying divine fire that could fill the heavens. These 3 great essences were the cornerstones of the heavenly sun realm's combat power, built on the 2 great foundations of the Yuan spirit and true Yuan. Above them was the sword Tao origin and the vast expanse origin. Originally, the vast expanse origin should also be at the third level. However, the power of the demigod vast expanse Emperor Lord that it had devoured was simply too powerful, directly raising the vast expanse origin to an extremely terrifying level. Even the light of the sword Tao origin that Tianyang had cultivated from his previous life to this life was suppressed by the light of the vast expanse origin. However, no matter how much of the vast expanse Emperor Lord's power the vast expanse origin devoured, it would at most be at the second level, on par with the sword Tao origin. Among all the origins, there was only one that was the most dazzling and the most powerful. The beginning of all Taos, the origin of all techniques, the chaos origin. The 10 origins gathered and circled around Tianyang's body. Tianyang stood in the center of the 10 origins. His eyes seemed to contain the sea of stars, deep and mysterious. Streaks of 9-colored Xinguang had already covered the entire 9th heaven forbidden ground of vast sky sacred mountain. The heavenly sword appeared in Tianyang's hand. He stood with the sword in his hand, like a young supreme. Beside him, the vast expanse Holy Spirit stared blankly at Tianyang, who was surrounded by the 10 origins and stood with the sword in his hand, like a peerless emperor. For some reason, he saw the image of a god on Tianyang's body. How could a heavenly great saint break through to the holy emperor realm produce divine power? The vast expanse Holy Spirit smiled, then watched Tianyang break through in front of him. Tianyang's expression was solemn. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth turned into mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas, crazily surging into Tianyang's body. His true Yuan origin emitted a supreme light, and his aura and strength continued to skyrocket. In the next moment, it exploded to an extremely terrifying level. Holy Emperor Realm, break through! Tianyang roared angrily, pointing his sword to the sky and roaring at the sky. Streaks of powerful aura exploded from Tianyang's body. In the next moment, thunderclouds gathered in the sky. Holy Emperor Realm, break through! Chapter 1537. The thick and dark thunderclouds looked like they were going to destroy the world. Above vast sky godly mountain, they quickly gathered. Although the speed of Lei Yun's attack was extremely fast, due to its enormous size, it looked like it was slowly expanding from afar. This Saint Emperor tribulation was far from being formed, but the destructive aura it released had already seeped out and permeated the mountains, rivers, water, and air. The entire vast sky godly mountain was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. What is this? In the third level of vast sky godly mountain, the fighting 10 parties gritted his teeth and clenched the purple lightning divine spear in his hand to prevent himself from falling to his knees. The pressure from the thunderclouds that appeared in the sky was almost crushing him to pieces. They had long left the Haoxiao exquisite pagoda. After searching the vast sky godly palace again, they quickly went to the third level, afraid that Tianyang would come to settle the score with them after his strength increased greatly after coming out of the pagoda. But now, instead of Tianyang, they were met with layers of terrifying thunderclouds. Is this a divine tribulation? But there are no divine Tao laws. Lin Fenghua faced the peak of vast sky godly mountain and knelt on one knee, staring at the thunderclouds in the sky. Beads of cold sweat seeped out of his forehead. In his impression, this kind of thing could no longer be considered a cloud. It was a mountain, a terrifying mountain born in the sky that was about to erupt with destructive power. Without divine Tao laws, it's definitely not a divine tribulation. But what else in vast sky godly mountain can cause such a huge change? Lin Fenghua looked at the thick thunderclouds and muttered to himself. Then, his eyes suddenly lit up. Could it be the 9th level of vast sky godly mountain? In the next moment, Lin Fenghua was about to stand up. The chaotic Xinguang that he used to resist Tianyang's half-condensed spirit also shot out from the surface of his body. Boom! At this moment there was an explosion. The chaotic Xinguang that appeared on Lin Fenghua's body instantly collapsed. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to his knees, unable to hold on any longer. Even so, Lin Fenghua continued to open his mouth and spit out mouthfuls of blood. His face was pale and his aura was weak. His hands were trembling non-stop. What is that thing? He didn't even see a single bolt of lightning. Jiang Haoxuan and Wu Zhou were about the same as Lin Fenghua and fighting 10 parties. They barely managed to hold on and not fall to their knees. However, the other cultivators in vast Sky Divine Mountain were not as powerful as the 4 great talents of Cloud Fire territory. They could only bear the heavy pressure and kneel down at the peak of vast Sky Divine Mountain. His heart was pained. Vast Firmament Divine Mountain's 9th heavenly seal had appeared, and they could only kneel before it. In vast Sky Divine Mountain, among the thousands of cultivators, only a young girl could stand. Jiang Haoxuan knelt on one knee beside her. However, Jiang Xian had no intention of helping him up. She looked at the peak of vast Sky Divine Mountain from afar. Deity tribulation? Without divine Tao precepts, what could it be? Jiang Xian muttered to herself. She didn't know why, but she had an instinctive feeling. This matter might have something to do with the unparalleled and mysterious Yang Tian. Tianyang knew nothing about the situation outside vast Sky Divine Mountain. At this moment, the 10 great origins, led by the Chaos Origin, shone with the brightest light. The Holy Emperor Tribulation naturally didn't have divine Tao precept. However, even Tianyang didn't know that when he condensed the Chaos Origin and stepped into the Saint Realm, he had already experienced a weakened version of the Holy Emperor Tribulation. Now, this was the real Holy Emperor Tribulation. Its power was probably comparable to a deity tribulation. The vast expanse Saint Spirit's expression was serious. He looked at the tribulation cloud in the sky and gritted his teeth. Waves of violent and powerful energy gathered in the center of the tribulation cloud. The next moment, boom! From nothingness to violence, it took less than a second. In less than a second, a terrifying lightning bolt that could swallow the entire vast Sky Divine Mountain descended. Tianyang snorted coldly. He activated the Divine Wilderness Heavenly Spirit Art and his entire body's true yuan exploded. Holding the heavenly sword in his hand, the 9-colored Xinguang seemed to form a 9-colored battle armor and attached to Tianyang's body. The sword slashed out, breaking the heavens. That huge lightning bolt instantly exploded. However, when Tianyang raised his head, he saw that the lightning bolts had formed an extremely terrifying thunderstorm. Boom, boom, boom. Among them, there wasn't any special lightning like the Destruction Divine Lightning or the Blood Demon Lightning. There was only one type, the lightning that was formed by the power of heaven and earth. However, the amount of heaven and earth spiritual qi that it contained was far more than all the lightning bolts that he had seen before combined. Tianyang slashed out with his sword. The sword light swept out and destroyed a large portion of the thunderstorm. However, after that, new lightning bolts were formed and turned into a thunderstorm that blasted towards Tianyang. Not long after, although the sword light that Tianyang slashed out was still powerful, it couldn't suppress the thunderstorm that was getting stronger and stronger. It was swallowed by it. Boom, 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 boom. Countless lightning bolts flashed. Amidst the azure lightning, a figure with a long sword in his hand roared into the sky. Legacy Sword Body Condense. The vast expanse Emperor's treasure that contained a body-tempering divine art, the Legacy Sword Body, suddenly shone brightly in Tianyang's body. The Legacy Sword Body wasn't the body-tempering divine art that the vast expanse Emperor cultivated. It was obtained by chance. However, in terms of strength, it wasn't any weaker than the other body-tempering divine arts in the divine world. For a sword cultivator like Tianyang, it couldn't be more suitable for him. The Sage Emperor's tribulation continued to attack. Tianyang's immortal divine fire was also forced out. After cultivating the 4th level of the immortal divine body, His immortal divine origin had also grown to an extremely powerful level. It made his immortal divine body much stronger. For a moment, the thunderstorm that seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and earth couldn't do anything to Tianyang's physical body. Legacy Sword Body, First Level, Stars Sword Body. Tianyang shouted in a low voice. The sword principal origin also shone brightly. For a moment, Tianyang seemed to become transparent. What formed him was the stars in the sky and the sword formed by the stars. Using the body as the sword body. The sword principal origin also rushed into Tianyang's legacy sword body. Moreover, the power of the sword realm also merged into Tianyang's body. If he cultivated normally, perhaps Tianyang wouldn't be able to cultivate the first level of the legacy sword body even after a few months. However, cultivating under the Sage Emperor's tribulation, the star's sword body was completed in less than 10 seconds. Entering the saint realm from the 9 saint paths is still within the scope of the heavenly way. After all, Wu Zun can indeed control many saint paths. Tianyang's eyes were deep as he muttered to himself. But the 10 origins is completely against the heavenly way. Since I've already gone against the heavenly way, why don't I go even further? Tianyang smiled slightly and rushed into the sky. He went straight for the Sage Emperor's tribulation cloud.